Let's wait for the stream to fire up across the internet, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Usually it takes a quick second or two for the stream to get live across the number of different platforms on which we stream, and it looks like things are alive and well. So let's get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. We help them navigate through the criminal justice system. And over our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We have judges not particularly interested in a thing called justice. And it all starts with the politicians, the people on the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and I to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of a difficulty doing so themselves. And that's why we started this program called Watching the Watchers Live, so that together we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency back down upon that very system with the hope of encouraging some meaningful change. We are grateful that you are here and with us today. We've got a lot to get to. Give you a quick little outline of what we're looking to get into today. First and foremost, I want to start with the media. Got a lot of new clips. We've been able to decipher a little bit what happened yesterday, and I want to break down what the media is doing because it's a little bit troubling. We've got some clips from a lot of the individuals out there, politicians and otherwise, who are out there pontificating about what they saw yesterday. We want to analyze that a little bit. We've got some updates from Mark Zuckerberg, from Michelle Obama, from Kamala Harris, and so on. We're going to do a deep dive in all of that. Then we're going to switch gears a little bit. We'll talk about what happened yesterday as it relates to the electoral vote. We've got a statement from a number of individuals, including Mike Pence and some other people as well. We're going to be talking about the shooting of Ashli Babbitt. She was, unfortunately, rest in peace, the woman who was shot and killed in the Capitol building yesterday. Break down that a little bit because we've got some angles and stuff that we want to review. And then we're going to end the program talking about the 25th Amendment. We have Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and a lot of people in the Congress talking about removing the president from office early, even though he's set to transition here on January 20th. They're really trying to add a little bit of insult to injury on his way out the door. And so let's get started. Before we do, I want to invite you to subscribe to the program. If you're not already a member of the channel, all you got to do is press that subscribe button and you're in. We go live at this time every day of the week, and we want you to be here and a part of that. I am going to go through some slides. So the way that this format works is I present a little bit, then we'll take some questions at the end of the program. And the slides are available in our Discord server. You'll find the link in the description below, so you can just chat with us before and after the program. You can get a copy of my free book in there. There's a PDF file, and you can hang out with some other good people who like to talk about these issues. All right, so since we have so much to get into today, enough of that. Let's get going. As I mentioned, I wanted to start with the media. The media, I think, is a huge problem in this country. I think there are a lot of people in the media who are sort of collectively responsible for a lot of the division in this country. They like to bubble up any type of issue that serves them and then viciously attack any sort of movements that do not, right? There's an agenda that we have seen this entire election and post-election season. So we want to break that down. Now, it's very interesting when you start to look at what people say sort of a few months ago and then compare them to their current statements today. So let's go around a little bit and look at that, because there may be some glaring hypocrisy. We can start right here with Matt McDermott. And back on October 4th of 2018, he was talking about the Kavanaugh protesters. Remember the Kavanaugh protesters? So Judge Kavanaugh was somebody who was nominated to the Supreme Court before Amy Coney Barrett was. And, people were upset about that. They were calling him a rapist and all these things that for stuff that happened like 20, 30 years ago. And so Matt McDermott, when that was happening, there were protests taking place on Capitol Hill right now, where thousands of anti-Kavanaugh protesters have taken over the Senate building, the Senate office building. So he says, incredible scene. They've literally taken over the building. This is coming from NBC News. And, he's sort of saying it's incredible, right? There's nothing to be too worried about back in 2018. Let me get rid of myself. You can see when this was. 10/4/2018, posted it on Twitter. Says, incredible scene. Thousands of protesters have taken over the building. But when we go to yesterday, Well, it's a little bit of a different tone, right? We are witnessing a domestic terrorism attack incited by the Republican Party. And so you say that's a little bit vanilla, right? This first statement is one where there's not a lot of opinion being dumped out on that tweet, but this one is clearly a different tone. A domestic terrorism attack incited by the Republican Party. And this is the same sort of pattern that you see throughout the media. A lot of this today, a lot of, oh my gosh, hyperventilating. The whole country's melting down because of protesters. But were they saying that some time ago? No, they weren't. Over here on Fox, German Lopez is posting this back on September 22nd, 2016. He says, listen, riots are destructive. They're dangerous. They're scary, but they can lead to serious social reforms. So to prevent more violent uprisings and protests, we need to take their causes seriously, is what he says. But yesterday, well, that attitude changes. Every person who forced their way into the Capitol should be arrested. Lock them all up. Okay, just a little bit of a different tone. One set of protests or riots is useful, the other is not. And so the way they report on it is totally inconsistent, totally hypocritical, and it's something that we're going to spend some time talking about. This is not with just some of these lower level reporters. This is also with some people that you may know. Okay, Michelle Obama is one of them. She posted a statement here today, a very long statement. It's 2 pages. We're not going to read the whole thing, but we'll just sort of highlight some of it. What does Michelle Obama have to say about this stuff? She says, I woke up yesterday elated that they won the Senate. In just a few hours, though, my heart had fallen harder and faster than I can remember. She goes through and talks about this, the horrendous scene that we saw yesterday, saying they just desecrated the center of American government. Once the authorities finally gained control of the situation, I have this here underlined in red, these rioters and gang members were let out of the building, not in handcuffs, but free to carry on with their days. So apparently, nothing's going to happen to the rioters and the protesters who were there. We've got some more slides to show you kind of what did happen to them, but that's her position here, right? This is the claim she's making, that nothing is going to happen. She says the day was a fulfillment of the wishes and of an infantile and unpatriotic president who can't handle the truth of his own failures. Left me with so many questions. What if these rioters had looked like the folks who go to Ebenezer Baptist Church every Sunday? Would that have been different? And so this is where this whole ordeal is turning into a racial thing yet again. Yet again, we're going to be sort of lectured at by individuals saying that this all boils down to race. Okay, there were probably some white supremacists there that were in the Capitol building yesterday, and we did see the Confederate flag rolling around there. But it's like everything today in American politics, it all boils down to race. All right, so Michelle Obama is picking that up and running with it. She says, I think we all know the answer. This summer's Black Lives Matter protests were an overwhelmingly peaceful movement. All right? Did you remember those protests? I did. We covered almost every single one of them. We talked about Rayshard Brooks. We talked about Jacob Blake specifically. I got skewered for Jacob Blake. I made a lot of videos defending him against being shot 7 times in the back while he was running away. It got skewered for that. Rayshard Brooks, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Daniel Prude, all of them. We covered all of the riots, all of the protests. Were they overwhelmingly peaceful? Well, we're going to revisit some of those. Our nation's largest demonstrations ever, she's calling the BLM, says bringing together people of every race and class and encouraging millions to re-examine their own assumptions. But nope, that didn't happen. We saw cracked skulls and so on. What do all of these folks have to say now, she says. And so this is just, a couple of images of what she's talking about. So remember, she said these are the most overwhelmingly peaceful movement. This was an overwhelmingly peaceful movement. Well, here's just a quick image of the BLM protests, where 5 arrested after protesters marched through D.C., starting small fires and engaging in a tense standoff with police. 5 officers were injured. Union said at least 1 officer was hospitalized after the latest confrontation in the nation's capital. And so you can see these people here while they're just burning over some newspaper stands, lighting everything inside on fire. See them marching down the street. Black Lives Matter, right? It says here the confrontations were the latest to transpire near the White House, where protesters have been gathering for weeks, literal weeks, to protest racial injustice since the May killing of George Floyd. They also came a day after thousands gathered in the district to march and to rally for racial justice and police reform following the killing of George Floyd and the recent shooting of Jacob Blake over in Kenosha, Wisconsin. So if you recall, these protests were taking place all summer, months and months and months. Not one day. What we saw happen yesterday was one day, less than 24 hours. I would say, 6 hours maybe, right? They were in, they were out. Congress was back in session voting. buildings weren't burned down. There was a lot of damage inside the Capitol building, but these were other protests that went on for literal months and months and months. And so, okay, you say, well, these people weren't in a government building. They weren't interfering with government stuff. Well, the next slide is, yeah, hell they were. This is a photograph of them toppling down a piece of government property. Statue from Albert Pike was on fire to mark Juneteenth, which commemorates the end of slavery in Texas 2 years after 1863. This happened on June 19th in Washington, D.C. during the nationwide protest against the marches against racial inequality in D.C. Okay, so we can all play this game, right? We can all pick a group of people and stigmatize the entire group. I have this entire summer, I was defending a lot of the BLM movement and a lot of the calls for police and justice reform. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I live in this space. I know how it goes. I do think that there needs to be some serious criminal justice reform. But once the protests got out of hand and they started toppling statutes, whether you agree with the statutes or not, or trying to ransack federal court buildings over in Portland, that's when it became too much. And I disavowed all of those protesters. And I was very upset about it back then. I was like, guys, you are ruining a positive movement. There could be some meaningful justice reform in this country, but you are ruining it by wrecking everything around you, by burning down Wendy's and it's like self-immolation. They're just, harming their own cause. And it was extremely frustrating. And it's the same thing that happened back then that's happening now. There's a small contingent of people who is acting out and everybody's slam dunking on the entire movement as a result. But you got to be consistent in this stuff. I'm trying to be consistent in this approach also, right? What happened yesterday was not every single Donald Trump supporter or everybody who is sympathetic to some of the president's concerns. It was a very small contingent and it was dealt with. And it's over, right? It's already over. So Michelle Obama is saying that they were mostly peaceful. Well, we can just go ahead and find some of this stuff and say, yeah, well, not so much, right? A lot of the same activities that we saw yesterday have been happening for literally months. They're done in Washington. The so-called, Trump mob, it's done. It's over, right? It's disbanded, and we don't see any more mayhem in the Capitol building. But we saw it for months. And in fact, it was going on until just recently, still in Portland. So Michelle Obama says it's mostly peaceful, and she's horrified by what she saw yesterday, but not so much about what she's been watching for this past summer. In fact, she says it was, hopeful, meaningful, even though we have a lot of evidence and pictures and photographs and dead people from the BLM protests that were taking place all around the country. That's coming from a sympathetic person who believes in criminal justice reform. Right? Michelle, her letter goes on. She says here, seeing the gulf between the responses to yesterday's riot and this summer's peaceful protest and the larger movement for racial justice is so painful, it hurts. I cannot think about moving on or turning the page until we reckon with the reality of what we saw yesterday. A little bit dramatic, okay? A little bit dramatic for somebody to watch what happened for months and months over the summer and then turn around and say that she can't even turn the page. It's so painful that this is a reckoning of our country. True progress will be possible only once we acknowledge that this disconnect exists and take steps to repair it. That means coming to grips with the reality that millions of Americans voted for a man who wants to burn down the democracy. Okay. She says, I hurt for our country. All I wish I had, and I wish I had all the solutions to make the things better. I wish I had the confidence that people would know better, will act like it for more than a news cycle or two. All I know is that now is a time for true patriotism. True patriotism. You can't be a Trump fan. You got to be her version of patriotic. Now is the time for those who voted for this president to see the reality of what they've supported. And here's where she's calling for action and publicly and forcefully rebuke him and the actions of that mob. Now is the time for Silicon Valley companies to stop enabling this monstrous behavior and go even further than they have already by permanently banning this man from their platforms and putting in place policies to prevent their technology from being used by the nation's leader to fuel insurrection. And I said this yesterday. I said, hey, they deleted a couple of Donald Trump's tweets literally yesterday. I said it's just a matter of time until they deplatform him because he's too difficult for them to bear. They can't deal with him. They just have to silence him and shut him up. I think it's a huge mistake. Huge mistake. It's going to bite them in the butt, I think. It says here, if we have any hope of improving this nation, now is the time for swift and serious consequences for the failure of leadership that led to yesterday's shame. I don't even know what that means, what her swift and serious consequences are. Don't even have any idea what she's hinting at there, but doesn't sound good, unless you're on Team Michelle Obama. She says, thankfully, even in the darkness and so on, the rest of it is just the same old sort of fluffy language that politicians like to sputter out. So there you go, right? That's Michelle Obama. She wants Trump banned. She wants him deplatformed. She wants swift and serious action in order to deal with a limited set of riots that took place yesterday. Totally overlooks everything else that happened this entire summer that we all covered here for a long time. But yesterday was so hard, it's a reckoning. Poor Michelle reckoning. All right, well, she's getting her wish because CNBC here says that Facebook and Instagram will, in fact, block President Trump's accounts indefinitely and for at least 2 weeks until the peaceful transition of power is complete. You see here a statement from Mark Zuckerberg over on Facebook, and he's piling on right in the bandwagon. He says the shocking events of the last 24 hours clearly demonstrate Donald Trump intends to use his remaining time in office to undermine the peaceful and lawful transition of power to his elected successor, Joe Biden. Is that accurate? Okay. Donald Trump yesterday and today said that there was going to be a peaceful and orderly transition of power. Kayleigh McEnany was just there in the White House press briefing room saying the same thing. So is that accurate, or is that actually fake news? Because it is actually fake news that Donald Trump has already said that they're going to transition. His decision to use the platform to condone rather than condemn the actions of his supporters rightfully disturbed the U.S. people, blah, blah, blah. Following the certification, the priority for the whole country must now be to ensure the remaining 13 days are done with established democratic norms. Over the last several years, we have allowed President Trump to use our platform consistent with our own rules, at times removing content, blah, blah, blah. We believe the risks of allowing the president to continue to use our service during the period are simply too great. Therefore, we are extending the block that we have placed on Facebook and Instagram accounts indefinitely and for at least the next 2 weeks until the peaceful transition of power is complete. So they're going to ban him until the 20th and then probably a lot longer thereafter. Okay, so you're seeing right now big tech just totally moving to eliminate the president of the United States from their platforms. If you don't understand how consequential that is for free speech, I mean, I don't know what other example I can give you. Massive, massive issue. If you're a free speech advocate, they are sidelining Donald Trump, one of the biggest political entities, if not the biggest political entity in this country. And they're just telling him, you can't speak on here anymore. They're telling his supporters, you need swift and serious consequences for this action. It's troubling behavior. Now, Byron York, who is somebody who is not a Trump fan, he says here that this is also problematic. He's a big, big journalist. I think he writes all over the place. But he said here, not only did Twitter lock President Trump's account, it has now apparently locked Dan Bongino's account for posting the Trump video message after the Capitol riot. YouTube and Facebook banned the video too. Big tech is in full suppression mode. There's a transcript of the video. He says, this is ridiculous. Worse, actually. People are perfectly capable of forming their own opinions on Trump's claim to have won the election. Trying to memory hole it is not only big brotherish, it deprives the public of useful information. Could not possibly agree more. And this is something that I've been saying for months on this program, that the more and more that this movement is tried to be marginalized or pigeonholed or just eliminated, literally eliminated off the internet by not being able to engage in some of these major platforms, what do you think those people are going to do? Do you think that they're just going to go, oh, okay, I guess we can't get on Facebook anymore. I guess Trump's not on Facebook anymore. I guess we'll just suddenly love Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Is that a reality? Or are they going to get more angry and more in a silo where they're just going to be, it's going to be an echo chamber where they're going to be more and more belligerent. We're going to see more of this type of activity, I think, throughout the country. It's troubling. Free speech is the pressure relief valve. We can all talk about issues. When we can't talk about issues, that's when people start shooting each other and burning buildings down, as we have been seeing around the country this entire year. And I'm not just talking about what happened yesterday. Let's go over to Kamala Harris. Joe Biden and Kamala, they had a couple joint statements today, and, it's to be expected. Let's listen to what Kamala Harris has to say about what she saw yesterday. She posted on Twitter, the challenge we're facing in our country is about more than the actions of a few. It's about how to transform a justice system that doesn't work equally for all. Okay, so that's her short statement. This is about a 2-minute clip. we're going to listen to the whole thing because we've got a response to it. We're going to listen to her saying kind of two things. Well, let's listen first before I tell you what I've identified. Here is the vice president-elect talking about the riots yesterday.
What we saw yesterday in our nation's capital was, as the president-elect has called it, an assault on the rule of law.
Okay, assault on the rule of law.
And it has no place in our democracy.
No place.
So I believe we must ask ourselves two questions about what happened yesterday. What went wrong?
All right. Let's play that again. I apologize. I don't know why it does that.
In our nation's capital was, as the president-elect has called it, an assault on the rule of law. And it has no place in our democracy. So I believe we must ask ourselves two questions about what happened yesterday. What went wrong? And how do we make it right?
Okay.
And I believe the answers require us to recognize that the challenge we're facing in our country is about more than the actions of the few we watched yesterday.
Okay, so not the 1%.
It's about how to reform, how to transform a justice system that does not work equally for all. A justice system that is experienced differently depending on whether you're white or black. A justice system that is experienced differently if you're rich or poor. A justice system that's different depending on whether your job requires you to take a shower before you go to work or requires you to take a shower when you come home after work. We witnessed two systems of justice. When we saw one that let extremists storm the United States Capitol,
okay,
and another that released tear gas on peaceful protesters last summer.
Peaceful protest, okay.
The American people have expressed brightly outrage. We know this is unacceptable. We know we should be better than this. The promise of our country is that all people will be treated equally. That's what the rule of law is supposed to be about. That's what the ideal of equal justice under law is all about.
Okay, so what did she actually say there? Not much of anything, right? A lot of the rah-rah justice stuff, which I agree with, by the way, right? I want equal justice across the board. I want everybody to be treated equally. I don't want a rich guy to get away with something that a poor guy can't get away with. I don't want a guy who takes a shower before work to have a worse penalty than the guy who, or have an easier penalty than the guy who takes a shower after work, right? All nice language. Well done. Thanks for, addressing some of the tough issues in the country. What the hell does that have anything to do with what happened yesterday? Okay, she's saying that, two issues, right? Number one is an assault on the rule of law. Okay, so she doesn't, by her own statement, she does not like people who break the law, right? Doesn't like people going in and disrupting buildings, entering onto private property, being where they shouldn't be, destroying things. She doesn't like assault on the rule of law. Got it. Neither do I. She also doesn't like anything that is unequal justice, right? She wants everybody to go through the same system of justice so that the people who were presumably there yesterday, they get punished, because we heard Michelle Obama say that, no, they were just kind of walked out, not in handcuffs, but they're free to go about their day. And that apparently is some sort of diminution, is that a word, of justice. Well, that's not the truth here. This is from the Metropolitan Police Department in D.C. Every single one of these people were arrested yesterday. Okay, this is 16 pages of arrest records. They all took place 900 block of K Street, Riot Act, felony. Look at all these riot acts and felonies. Henry, Larry, Jay, Brandon, Gideon, Antonio, Trayvon. We got Autumn. We got Justin, Monet. All this stuff comes from the unrest-related arrest data as of January 7th. So this was updated today. Riot Act, felony, burglary, destruction of property, resisting arrest, assault on a police officer, burglary too, okay? Dozens and dozens of names on this one page, right? And it just goes on and on and on. The defendant's last name, this was unrest-related arrest data. It just goes on. All of these were on January 6th, the offense date, the arrest date here. Okay, so it goes on for 15 pages. Look at this down here at the bottom. 15 pages of this document. Carrying a pistol without a license. We've got simple assault, curfew violations, possession of a prohibited weapon, unlawful entry, curfew. Okay, they're all getting arrested. Everybody who was there was getting arrested. The FBI is investigating them. There is no unequal distribution of justice. Everybody who was there is getting investigated. Okay, so to make this claim that there was some sort of, coup where these people were just able to act with impunity and go around and do whatever they want is total nonsense. So what is she talking about? Everybody who was involved in that is going to get prosecuted, and they're going to have to face the justice system. So I don't even know what that was about, but there was arraignments that took place today. This came over from a BuzzFeed reporter, Emma O'Connor, and she was there today where they were all getting arrested or getting arraigned. An arraignment in court is where the judge just tells you what you've been charged with, sets release conditions, says you can come back here or not, or you have to report by this date. Do you have an attorney, and so on. And so that was taking place today. Literally today in court. Emma O'Connor says, I'm listening in on the arraignment of dozens of people who were arrested at pro-Trump riots and protests at Capitol Hill. We'll tweet what I find out. First person arraigned is Michael Amos from Florida. Charges unlawful entry into the Capitol building, violation of curfew. Judge says he disobeyed Capitol Police and Metro Police. He's released pending trial. He's banned from D.C. He was held overnight. Phone is dead. During his arraignment, they released a list of all those arrested yesterday in connection with the riots. Okay, and that's what I just showed you these. Okay, this is her link. She posted here. The Metro Police released a list of all those arrested yesterday in connection with the riots and the break into the building. All of these, 16 pages of arrests happened yesterday. A woman named Victoria from Connecticut, the first D.C. resident, a guy named Nazir, 29, unlawful entry and curfew. Everyone is being temporarily released with stay-away restrictions. They are all given virtual court dates for the future court dates, which penalty sentences will be decided or dismissed. If they show up, they could get jail time, blah, 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 blah. Okay, it's standard. So I don't know what she's talking about. Some unequal application of the justice system. Hundreds of people have been arrested. They're being prosecuted. They've got court dates. They've got arraignments. So, okay, well, looks like a pretty equal system of justice to me. Michelle Obama, they weren't just being walked out and said, hey, go about your day. Thanks for rioting and tearing down our Capitol building. No, there's hundreds of people on there who've all been arrested. They're all going through the justice system. So to say that somehow, this was a lot less focused or a lot less, I would say, policed than some of these other BLM protests is just nonsense. It's flat out nonsense. There's hundreds of people, as you just saw, that the Metro Police Department in DC themselves say have been arrested, and they had court this morning. So I'm not sure what else they want out of that. Now, to her second point about this idea that law and order, right? We don't want an assault on the law. We want the rules to be followed. What was she talking about? Was she talking about this from May 28th, 2020? Remember what happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota after the George Floyd stuff? Is this the type of law and order she's speaking about? So Minneapolis, these are the BLM protests that we're talking about. Burning down a liquor store that is in flames and near the 3rd Police Precinct in May 28th, 2020. Okay? We have Miss Harris and Obama. I'm sure they saw all this. Is this one of those peaceful protests that they were talking about? Maybe they're talking about this one. The protest began in Minneapolis on Tuesday, escalated, spread across the country. Another building being burnt down. Okay, May 27th. This was May 28th, May 27th. They're standing out there, F everybody, F the world, take down this private property, billowing in smoke. It just goes on and on and on. Here's another one. May 28th, tries to extinguish a fire outside a Target store near Minneapolis 3rd Police Precinct on May 28th. From Getty Images, okay, torching the whole friggin' city. They broke into the Minneapolis 3rd Police Precinct around 10 p.m. and set the building on fire. They went into a police department and torched the building. They've been outside of Portland for months trying to nuke the federal court building. So it's attacks on court buildings and police stations. Okay, it's another government building, just like the Capitol building was yesterday, except in this case, the Capitol building was not burnt to the ground like the police department was. Well, what does Kamala Harris have to say about that? What's her position on that? Is she for the equal application of the law? Is she for an assault on the rule of law? Does she think that those were assaults on the rule of law? Or was it something else? Well, it was something else. She says, hey, if you're able to chip in now to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to help post bail for those protesting on the ground in Minnesota. And she links this right on her Twitter account back on June 1st, 2020, a few days after the protests ended. Right? So she's watching those buildings burn down, watching the police department burn down, and then she says, hey, by the way, all those people who are arrested, let's help them get them out of custody. Here's a place where you can go and donate bail. That was months ago. Now today she's saying this is a tragic thing. We got to do stuff to fix this. It's the ultimate in hypocrisy, and it's so disgusting. It makes my blood boil. But it's just par for the course, right? The politicians are never going to let a crisis go to waste. They're going to take full advantage of this stuff, and they're going to believe that you're too stupid to remember what they said 3 or 4 months ago, 6 months ago in this case. Because the media just pigeonholes the whole thing. They bury it. They sweep it under the rug. What you saw from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and a lot of the other sycophants out there in the media hyperventilating over what happened yesterday is total nonsense. They're lying. They're just taking advantage of a story that serves them. And there's no consistency again that I've seen from almost any of them. Andy NGO, if you've been following Andy NGO, he's been following these protests. He posted this yesterday. He said the disparate responses to those currently breaking inside the Capitol building versus those who tried to burn down the federal courthouse in Portland for months tells you everything that you need to know. And he's right. He's exactly right. It's a total disparate treatment. They're saying that those were good. Torching of police buildings, torching of federal courthouses, that's okay. Those are peaceful protests. That's lawful. No issues there. But when you do it to the Capitol building and you happen to be a couple, loony Trump supporters who are in there, well, the whole movement's bad. We now need to invoke Facebook and Twitter and Instagram to ban these people from talking about it. Michelle Obama says there needs to be a serious reckoning in this country. Everybody's got to now make adjustments because of what a couple of knuckleheads did in the Capitol building that resulted in sort of tarring and feathering half the country who thinks that maybe Donald Trump has some meaningful things to say and at least a moderately interesting vision for how the country should be run. The ultimate in hypocrisy. Let's go back and let's talk about what happened yesterday. So we want to break this down, right? Another sort of contingent of the media was saying that this is all Trump supporters. Every single individual who has a Trump flag, a MAGA hat, who voted for the guy, who follows him on Twitter, they're all pieces of garbage. Well, we got some more videos that have come out since what we saw happen yesterday. And here's one from Jack Posobiec, who's an excellent follow on Twitter. If you are not already following him, he shows this video, says that you can hear the crowd booing and demanding that this person stop breaking the window at the Capitol in this video.
Stop breaking the window! Stop them!
All right, so you can hear them screaming, boo, 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 no Antifa, no Antifa. There's a guy at the front of the building getting into it with some other people, essentially, it looks like to me, arguing about going in there, about stopping what you're doing. And so, you've got a huge contingency of Trump supporters that look very clearly like Trump supporters out there on the Capitol floor, probably too close to the building anyways, right? They probably shouldn't have been there. I don't know where the barrier started. But the point is it's not everybody, right? This wasn't a whole group of angry Trump. This wasn't an angry Trump mob. This was a very, very small, minor contingent of the entire organization, just like it was with BLM. But the same rules apply. You have to control your protest. You have to control it. And I've been consistent on that, but the other people in the media just haven't. They just say that one is good, the other is bad. I've been largely here saying that both are problematic, both are not good. We don't want the destruction of property. We don't want people being killed. It doesn't serve the cause. It doesn't help Trump and his supporters. It didn't help the criminal justice reform movement either. I was disapproving of both of those because they're so problematic. Torching buildings, breaking and entering, Injuring people is not the solution across the board. But that's not the same claims that the media makes. The media, Kamala, Michelle, they'll pick the ones that serve them and they'll dispose of the other ones that don't. And they'll demand that big tech and everybody else circle the wagons in order to punish their adversaries. And that's troubling as hell, because now we're talking about banning people off platforms, eliminating dialogue, stifling free speech, and that is going to lead to a pressure cooker, a boiling cauldron of resentment throughout this country. It is the wrong way for this to go. It goes on. Here's another clip of another angle showing sort of the same stuff. Here is, Miss Faith just sent me a message. Trump just posted something. So we'll play that here in a minute. Let's listen into another clip, a different angle. Okay, so he's cracking the window in and she's saying, no Antifa, no Antifa. And, there's some other weird stuff going on. But before we get there, let's take a look at what Miss Faith just sent over. How long is this? All right, so let me pull this open. And looks like Trump just posted this on Twitter. So it's breaking news, everybody. This just came out, looks like a couple minutes ago. Here is Donald Trump on Twitter.
I would like to begin by addressing the heinous attack on the United States Capitol. Like all Americans, I am outraged by the violence, lawlessness, and mayhem. I immediately deployed the National Guard and federal law enforcement to secure the building and expel the intruders. America is and must always be a nation of law and order. The demonstrators who infiltrated the Capitol have defiled the seat of American democracy. To those who engaged in the acts of violence and destruction, you do not represent our country. And to those who broke the law, you will pay. We have just been through an intense election and emotions are high, but now tempers must be cooled and calm restored. We must get on with the business of America. My campaign vigorously pursued every legal avenue to contest the election results. My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote. In so doing, I was fighting to defend American democracy. I continue to strongly believe that we must reform our election laws to verify the identity and eligibility of all voters and to ensure faith and confidence in all future elections. Now Congress has certified the results. A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power. This moment calls for healing and reconciliation. 2020 has been a challenging time for our people. A menacing pandemic has upended the lives of our citizens, isolated millions in their homes, damaged our economy, and claimed countless lives. Defeating this pandemic and rebuilding the greatest economy on earth will require all of us working together. It will require a renewed emphasis on the civic values of patriotism, faith, charity, community, and family. We must revitalize the sacred bonds of love and loyalty that bind us together as one national family. To the citizens of our country, serving as your president has been the honor of my lifetime. And to all of my wonderful supporters, I know you are disappointed, but I also want you to know that our incredible journey is only just beginning. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
All right, so that is probably Trump's concession speech, right? That's probably all you're going to get out of him. Not sure that there's going to be anything more than that, but it's exactly what we were expecting. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who were saying he's never going to leave office. They're going to have to invoke the 25th Amendment, all these things, and it's the end of the world. And he's saying, listen, yeah, they won. He's going to fight till the end, and he was going to leave. I've never, not once thought that he was going to stay in office and they're going to have to throw him out. I think the people who did think that were probably a little bit off. You may want to be revisiting your sort of filter on the world, because he's the president. He's not a lunatic like a lot of the people in the media like to believe that he is. Right? He's going to leave office, and we all knew he was going to. He's going to put up a fight a little bit, but he exercised the due process that exists under the rules, and made his challenges in court, filed the lawsuits, and didn't win. So he's going to leave. Congress certified it yesterday. It was the day that we were saying was the D-Day, and it's done. It's over, right? So it stinks if you're a Trump supporter, but it's done. It's over. So let's go on and let's go back to some of the analysis from yesterday. There was also this other video of a cop, it looks like, sort of opening the gates here. And I don't know what this is about. I don't know what... it looks bad. I'm wondering if there's an alternative explanation. This is a cop who literally opens the gate and waves people in. So watch him waving people in. Okay, and there are a couple different videos that we're going to get to today. So this one's interesting, right? You know, a big criticism that I had on the broadcast yesterday was all about this idea. How did these people get access into the building? You know, how did the law enforcement stand down to such a degree that they were going to just ransack one of the most important buildings in the entire country, literally sit at Nancy Pelosi's desk with their feet up and access her email? You know, what kind of an oversight was this? And this video, it doesn't look like there was all that much going on here. Now, we don't know at what point in the day this was, you know, this was early or not, but, you know, not multiple layers of security around this building here. Cop just sort of opening the gate or letting them open the gate and then waving people through. And, you know, it's frustrating. So let's keep trying to piece together a little bit of what happened yesterday, and then we're going to get into the 25th Amendment. You know, I was going to talk about the 25th Amendment today at the end of the broadcast, and now that Trump has sort of conceded, I'm not sure that that is necessary anymore. But I think it actually still is, because they're going to do everything they can to get him out of office even sooner. Right? Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. All right, we're going to get there when we get there. I apologize for that. So this guy, Buffalo Horn guy, or the Horn guy, looks like he was a QAnon supporter in the horned helmet. He joins a storming of the U.S. Capitol. This came from the Arizona Republic. I spoke with Jake Angeli, according to Adrian Morrow, the QAnon guy who got inside the Senate chamber. He said police eventually gave up trying to stop him and other Trump supporters and let them in. After a while, he said police politely asked him to leave and let him go without arrest. So he may not have been in that list. You know, he may not have been somebody who got charged, but they know who he is, and the FBI is looking into this stuff. So, you know, trying to decipher what happened yesterday is very interesting. You've got some who say, well, this was all Antifa. You've got some who say, no, this was all Trump supporters. And so people are trying to decipher that. I've gotten a lot of emails, a lot of Twitter messages, and a lot of people are concerned. They're saying this wasn't Trump supporters. This was something else. And you know, it's not really looking like that. We have another post from this guy who I follow very, very closely. He does an excellent job with his reporting on Twitter. His name is Ian Miles Cheong over at Still Gray. He says, actual fact, I verified this myself when everyone was calling them Antifa. I'm not sure why MAGA supporters are so insistent on tying themselves to the actions of white supremacists. I'm giving you an out to disavow them because they're the ones responsible for the violence. Somebody asks him, you verified through Snopes? He says, I just verified it independently before these articles were even out. And this came over from CNN Politics saying, no, it really wasn't Antifa. It was sort of you know, the right-wing extremists who are part of the white supremacist groups or whatever whatever those groups are. The problem here is, you know, people don't like that. You know, they want to, anytime your movement does something bad or your team does something bad, you want to go find somebody else to blame for that. But, you know, the Trump people also have to recognize that it's a big movement, right? There's 70 million people who voted for the guy. And so you're going to have some fringe elements in that group. You're going to have people who are willing to go and, you know, knock down the doors of the Capitol building. Many people, myself included, who know other Trump supporters would never imagine doing something like that, right? Could never envision anybody that I know going in and doing that type of recklessness. But that doesn't mean that accounts for every single person, right? There's going to be a small contingency of any big group that does something that's on the fringe. And so that's what happened yesterday, right? At least according to Ian Miles Cheong. We've also got him posting here. He's another blue check mark. He says he's responding to Mo Brooks. Please don't be like the fake news media. Don't rush to judgment on the assault on the Capitol. Wait for the investigation. All may not be and likely is not what it appears. Evidence growing that the fascist Antifa orchestrated the Capitol attack with clever mob control tactics. The evidence follows. And he says, look, that's incorrect. Several people have identified as Antifa are known white supremacists. They're the same ones who were part of organizing the Charlottesville rally in 2017. And then, as I mentioned previously, we were talking about Andy NGO, or Andy, I just call him Andy NGO. I don't know how to say his last name. Andy NGO has been really, really following Antifa for months. I mean, if anybody in this country knows Antifa, it's this guy. He has been reporting on the ground, following them at every single protest. He's gotten, hit in the head with eggs being there, all sorts of stuff. And he is even claiming that, no, it wasn't Antifa, guys. He says a journalist, Andy NGO, who has become an expert on the violent anarchist group Antifa, today dismissed claims by President Trump supporters that the group was behind the pro-Trump riots on Capitol Hill. Says it wasn't them. Right. And he just retweeted this. He was tweeting an article from the Washington Examiner that is giving his statement, and he's boosting it again. Right. So he's just doubling down on that. It's okay that there were, that these weren't necessarily Trump supporters. These were white supremacists who may also be in alignment with the president. But just because they're a fringe element, doesn't mean that you can blame somebody else. They're the ones responsible for it. There's no evidence to show otherwise. So there it is. The FBI is going to be looking into this stuff. The director of the FBI posted this statement on the violent activity at the U.S. Capitol. FBI Director Christopher Wray issued this statement regarding what happened yesterday. The violence and the destruction showed a blatant, appalling disregard for our institutions. As we've said, we do not tolerate violent agitators or extremists who use the guise of the First Amendment to incite violence. Such behavior betrays the values. Make no mistakes. We're going to hold everybody accountable. Let me assure the American people we've deployed our full investigative resources and are working closely with our federal, state, and local to find who these people are. Members of the public can help by providing tips, and then they gave you a form right here. So you can follow that link, go to fbi.gov/US Capitol, and there's going to be a form that if you know any information about that, if you do suspect that this is Antifa or you've got evidence about who these people are, send them into the FBI. The FBI will then investigate and then probably prosecute them. So there we have it. Let's talk a little bit about what happened in Congress yesterday. So after the chaos, the turmoil was over, we started counting votes again. And I was up pretty late watching a lot of it, and it was largely uneventful. Couple clips that we want to run through today. And one of the points that I made on yesterday's show was the idea here that what we saw happen in the Capitol is going to shake some senators loose. It's going to shake some House members loose. Not in favor of Donald Trump. They're going to use this as a pretext to change their vote. And that happened. We saw two people who sort of had enough of it. Lindsey Graham, Kelly Loeffler. Two people who were, Lindsey Graham at least was sort of on Team Trump, and I think he was sort of weighing the option about whether he was going to object or not. But Kelly Loeffler, who just lost her Senate seat out of Georgia, she had explicitly said that she was going to be objecting to the electoral votes. And then yesterday got a little weak in the knees because of what happened in the Capitol. I think if anybody was a big winner yesterday, it was probably the Democrats, right? Because now they're going to be able to tar the entire Trump movement as illegitimate and a bunch of racists who destroyed the Capitol building. That's their effort. We're already seeing that. Michelle Obama's calling for, vigorous action and whatever she said. And we've got Kamala Harris saying we got to transform everything. They're going to run with this for a long time. They're maximizing their mileage out of this event. But really, Mitch McConnell was kind of a big winner too, wasn't he? He really did not want this vote to happen on the Senate floor. He did not want to put all these senators in a precarious position. And so this distraction, it took the entirety of the news cycle. We started yesterday morning with Ted Cruz making his argument about setting up a congressional commission to investigate the electoral fraud claims, and it was totally overshadowed. I mean, he spoke, and then they were all basically escorted out of the building as this mob descended upon the Capitol building. And when it was over, everybody was asleep. The Capitol building was still in session, but the country was gone. Everybody was down, sleeping. They woke up this morning, and we've learned that the Senate and the House of Representatives and Mike Pence have confirmed Joe Biden is the next president. So they counted the votes. I watched a lot of it, and we wake up and Joe Biden's president. So all of those senators who were getting nervous about what they're going to say about this stuff, they all got to vote under the cover of darkness. They all got to vote under the cover of hysteria and chaos. So it's not even going to be remembered. Their votes are not even going to count. And it's just sort of a glossed over in history. So Mitch McConnell wins. The Democrats win. People like Lindsey Graham wins. Kelly Loeffler wins. Everybody gets to win because this chaotic event yesterday took the wind out of the sails. This is Lindsey Graham.
We've had a hell of a journey. I hate it being this way. Oh, my God, I hate it. From my point of view, he's been a consequential president. But today, first thing you'll see. All I can say is count me out. Enough is enough. I've tried to be helpful. But when the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled 4-3 that they didn't violate the Constitution of Wisconsin, I agree with the 3, but I accept the 4. If Al Gore can accept 5-4, he's not president. I can accept Wisconsin 4-3. Pennsylvania, it went to the Second Circuit. So much for all the judges being in Trump's pocket. They said, no, you're wrong. I accept the Pennsylvania Second Circuit that Trump's lawsuit wasn't right. Georgia, they said the Secretary of State took the law in his own hands. He changed the election laws unlawfully. A federal judge said, no, I accept the federal judge even though I don't agree with it. Fraud. They said there's 66,000 people in Georgia under 18 voted. How many people believe that? I asked, give me 10. I hadn't had one. They said 8,000 felons in prison in Arizona voted. Give me 10. I hadn't gotten one. Does that say there's problems in every election? I don't buy this. Enough's enough. We got to end it. Vice President Pence, what they're asking you to do, you won't do because you can't.
Yeah, so there's Lindsey Graham. Enough is enough already. Comes back to the Capitol after everything had melted down, and he's out. Okay, he was out. Now, remember, before the election, Lindsey Graham was carrying Trump's luggage for him. I mean, he was doing everything he possibly could to get in his good graces. He was going to lose his election. He didn't. He won just very recently, so he's in the Senate for another 6 years. Same story with Ben Sasse. All of these senators who were sort of, kind of milking the Trump bandwagon a little bit, using him to boost them up. All of them are gone. Soon as they get their another 6 years in their additional term, boom. All love and support for the Trump team and anything that Trump has done is just gone and out the window. Kelly Loeffler, the same story here. She had been very explicit about supporting the objections to the votes. She said on a rally right before the Senate elections took place this week that she was going to be objecting to them. She came out with her MAGA hat on, or at least an American, flag hat or whatever it was, with standing right in front of Trump. I'm going to object, all this stuff. Well, that story changed. She lost the Senate seat, and then when she was called on to fulfill what her promise was, she bailed. Here she is.
Mr. President, when I arrived in Washington this morning, I fully intended to object to the certification of the electoral votes. However, the events that have transpired today have forced me to reconsider.
Okay.
And I cannot now in good conscience object to the certification of these electors. The violence, the lawlessness, and siege of the halls of Congress are abhorrent and stand as a direct attack on the very institution my objection was intended to protect, the sanctity of the American democratic process. And I thank law enforcement for keeping us safe. I believe that there were last-minute changes to the November 2020 election process and serious irregularities that resulted in too many Americans losing confidence not only in the integrity of our elections, but in the power of the ballot as a tool of democracy. Too many Americans are frustrated at what they see as an unfair system. Nevertheless, there is no excuse for the events that took place in these chambers today, and I pray that America never suffers such a dark day again. Though the fate of this vote is clear, the future of the American people's faith in the core institution of this democracy remains uncertain.
All right. Enough of her, right? She's out of the Senate. She is totally weak-kneed. A little bit of a riot shakes her to the core. She's going to object because she believes in, the functioning of our electoral systems and democracy. A couple rioters come in. She's escorted out. She's brought back in a couple hours later. Whoa, everything changes, right? Life is very dramatic. Now, I oppose the violence, the election integrity stuff, that, what I was talking about previously, not that important anymore. So, she got shaken loose a little bit, and I'm sure it happened with some other Congress people and probably some other senators. I mean, think about the alternative. What would have happened if Ted Cruz goes, Rand Paul goes, all of these individuals who had sort of said that they were going to be objecting to this stuff? They get to make good, compelling arguments. They get to present good, hard evidence, sort of like Trump was saying was going to happen today. None of it happened. So the whole thing was derailed. Well, this is what the final objections were on some of them. Remember, a couple states did have objections, but these are what the numbers look like. So this was in the House of Representatives. 113 Republicans still voted yes, 273 voted nay, and so the objections didn't stand on any states that were heard yesterday. In Arizona specifically, a couple people, Arizona was first up. It was the third state counted, and this is, sort of how it broke down. We had Kelly Loeffler bailed, James Lankford, Ron Johnson, Bill Haggerty, Steve Daines, Mike Braun, Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, Rick Scott, Cynthia Loomis of Wyoming, Florida. They're all out. They all voted to certify Arizona. The people who did object to Arizona's votes: Tommy Tuberville, expecting him, Senator John Kennedy, Roger Marshall, Cindy Hyde-Smith of Mississippi, Josh Hawley of Missouri, and Ted Cruz of Texas. Same stories over in Pennsylvania. Couple changes. Looks like we got an additional senator to object in Pennsylvania. We have Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Cindy Hyde-Smith. It looks like the addition was, who was that? Tommy Tuberville? Well, I don't know. Six in Arizona, 7 in Pennsylvania, voted to certify the same people, Kelly Loeffler of Georgia, and so on. Now, Georgia was not even objected to. No senator joined in on the Georgia objections, which I thought was a little bit surprising. So as we were going through the alphabet last night of all the different states, Arizona was disposed of quickly. Georgia was the next big one. When no senator joined in on the Georgia objections, everybody just kind of knew this was over, right? So we were waiting as the other states were going on. It finally got to Pennsylvania, and then Josh Hawley, much to his credit, by the way, stuck true to his objection, right? This is not an endorsement of an objection or not either way. It's an endorsement of politicians who do what they say they're going to do. Kelly Loeffler said she was going to do one thing and didn't. Thank God she's not in the Senate. What a weak, spineless politician, right? She made a promise a couple days before, backed out the very next day. All because of a little riot in the Capitol building? Okay, she's inclined to do that. I'm glad she's not in the Senate. Josh Hawley said he was going to do it, and he did it. And he objected to Pennsylvania late in the evening last night. Very late. And he made them all stay for another couple hours. And so they had to come back and vote on it. So at least, hat tip to him for just sticking true to his word on that. Mike Pence, in the meantime, was counting all of the votes. It is this post was very interesting. This came over from this guy, Kyle Cheney. Says it's 2:55 a.m. and I just figured out how Pence massaged the rules of the Electoral College counting session to avoid introducing the, quote, rival slates of Trump electors. These are the instructions the VP have given out at the start in each of the last 5. Note the difference. All right. So what he's talking about are the language. It's the statements. It's the forms that the president of the Senate, the vice president of the country, will read as they're counting the dueling elector slates. And so in 2005, you can read this right here. It says the vice president, after ascertaining that certificates are regular in form and authentic, the tellers will announce the votes cast by the electors for each state, beginning with Alabama. Same type of story in 2019. Same type of story in 2013, 2017. But in 2021, look, this paragraph is a lot bigger than the other ones, isn't it? After ascertaining that the certificates are regular in form and authentic, same statement, the tellers will announce the votes cast by the electors for each state, beginning with Alabama. Very similar. But they added in this bolded text that the parliamentarians advised me is the only certificate of vote from the state that purports to be a return form from that state that has annexed to it a certificate from an authority of the state purporting to appoint or ascertain electors. All right, so you see what happened here? This is very interesting. Legally, what Pence did is he said, I am not responsible for that decision. So something that in my opinion really is ultimately delegated to the vice presidential role. Okay, he does get to make that decision, I think. He didn't. I wouldn't have recommended that he did make that decision. I've talked about sort of that Louis Gohmert lawsuit and whether the vice president has the authority to just, fling out electors that he doesn't want. I think that responsibility is still delegated to the vice president. So it's a little bit of a nuanced argument here. The vice president has that ultimate authority, didn't exercise it, rightfully so, because the rules don't say that he can exercise it or not exercise it, right? The rules are not clear on that. What happens when there are a dueling slate of electors coming in? We were talking about that a lot on this channel. What is Pence going to do? What can he do? And he was even sued as a result of it so that there could be some clarity on it. The rules are very ambiguous, but the power still lies with the vice president to make that decision. What Vice President Pence did, is he just took that responsibility away from himself and the vice presidency, and he just delegated it right over to the parliamentarian, whoever the hell that person is. So the parliamentarian here, advised me, is the only certificate of a vote from the state. So the parliamentarian then makes the decision. The vice president doesn't make the decision. So Mike Pence took the responsibility of having to decide which slate of electors to count away from himself and just delegated that to somebody else. So, really, it's not the vice president who's the most powerful person in the world. It's the parliamentarian, right? The parliamentarian then, apparently, according to Mike Pence and how they executed this thing yesterday, is the one who can decide which ones are properly certified, just according to this little maneuver. All right, so here he is. Now, this was another interesting little clip. I don't think this has any real relevance. I just thought it was interesting. This is the moment after it looks like the thing is over, where Mike Pence was handed a little gift in the palm while shaking hands after the electoral count certification. So people are wondering, well, what was he handed there? And Mike Pence, to his credit, is pretty funny about this. So this guy, probably a congressperson, walks up to him and is going to hand him or shake his hand, but he's going to have, like you give to the maitre d' at a restaurant where you want to get in. You slip him a little, $20 bill, boom, you get your table right away. But you put it in your hand, you shake the hand, not anymore because of COVID, but you shake the hand, and then you just kind of slide that off. That's not what Mike Pence does. Mike Pence he goes, "What's this?" He looks at it. "Oh, what the hell is this thing that you were trying to slyly hand over to me?" Here he is. There's something in my hand right now. What the hell is that thing? Oh. Looks at it. Puts it in his pocket. Right, goes back. Hanging out with Nancy Pelosi now. All right, so I don't know what that means, if anything. I just thought it was funny. So where are we going to now? All right, so... Okay, so speaking about Mike Pence, there was a little bit of interesting things happening at the White House. So late last night, Henry Rogers posted that a source tells me the chief of staff to the vice president, Mike Pence, is being denied entry back into the White House, working to confirm that. And then Philip Melachtonin-Wegman says, confirmed, Short tells me he's not allowed back on the White House grounds. Quote, he's blaming me for advice to the VP. So Donald Trump now apparently sent the vice president's chief of staff, banned them from the White House grounds, quote, blaming him for the advice that he gave to the vice president. So, I said a couple days ago when Mike Pence didn't just fling those electoral votes out the window that Trump was going to be not happy about it. And obviously that is the case. We learned yesterday, I think, also that Mike Pence unfollowed Donald Trump. So Donald Trump, before he got banned from Twitter, was posting some statements saying Mike Pence didn't have the guts or whatever he was saying. And Mike Pence just said, oh, well, okay, well, you can say that. Here's a nice little boop, unfollow. Just like an unsubscribe button, which happened to us also last night, which is okay. All right, let's talk about that shooting. Ashli Babbitt. Ashli Babbitt is a 35-year-old Air Force veteran from Ocean Beach, California. She was a woman who was shot and killed. Awful situation. I just wanted to sort of pay a little bit of tribute to her because she is no longer with us. On active duty, 2004 to 2008. Also a member of the Air Force Reserve, 2008 to 2010. Air Force Air Nation Guard, 2010 to 2016. Her and her husband owned Fowler's Pool Service and Supply Incorporated. And so she's dead, right? She's dead. She got shot in the Capitol building, and we want to talk a little bit about that. Now, it's interesting, they used to own a pool company. I used to clean pools. Before I went to law school, I was a pool boy. I used to clean pools, build pools, and so I didn't know that. We have a couple little bits from, where is this from? From the Daily Beast. It says, Ashli was loyal as well as extremely passionate about what she believed in. Her brother-in-law said she loved this country. She felt honored to serve in our armed forces. Her mother-in-law, Robin, said, I'm numb. I'm devastated. Nobody from D.C. notified my son. We found out on TV. Oh, my goodness. D.C. Police Chief Robert Conti and the D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser confirmed that a plainclothed Capitol Police officer fired the fatal shot. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund said in a Thursday statement that the officer was put on leave while a probe was underway. He confirmed Babbitt was the victim. Ashli's husband, Aaron Babbitt, told Fox in San Diego he and his wife, who are 35, live in San Diego. She was in Washington on Wednesday to support Trump. Aaron Babbitt sent his wife a message about 30 minutes before the shooting and never heard back. She loved her country and she was doing what she thought was right to support her country, joining up with like-minded people that also love their president and the country. is what he told the news station. So sympathies to the family, may she rest in peace. Now, this is a breakdown of what happened here. So so there was a video going around that showed the entire shooting. We're not going to play that. Obviously, somebody's dead, and we don't like to sort of put the spotlight on that. But it is interesting how this shooting occurred, because I didn't think it was necessary. Right? A lot of people are saying that this was justified because of the fact that they were breaking into the building. And I understand that, but just from watching this shooting, I didn't think that she was a clear or present threat to this particular officer. And so we've got a couple screenshots of it, but we're not going to play the video. Okay, so here is the officer who actually pulled the trigger against her. This was the building. You can see some chairs are barricaded here. They're in a stairwell, and Ashli was over here on the right side of the screen. This officer, you can see this windows are broken, chairs are barricading the doors. This officer was the one who fired the shots through the window as she was sort of up in the window. So this next slide, this is Ashli, right? She's circled in here. And this image came from a guy by the name of Cleavon_MD over on Twitter, CLEAVON_MD. And he posted this and then circled this up. So presumably this is her who's sort of in the window, and this officer turns this corner right here, fires a couple shots, and then she goes down. Now what's interesting here, first of all, she's in the window, right? She's not through it. We've got a lot of people with the MAGA hats on and so on. And she's kind of up in the air. This officer turns the corner and shoots. But there were a lot of other officers literally right behind her. So you can see she is now down on the ground. She got shot. She kind of fell back off of the window. And there's a number of officers who were standing right there. So that shot, in my opinion, was just totally unnecessary. And she didn't have a weapon on her, and they were rioting in a government building. I get that, but was she a clear threat to that officer specifically? Was he fearful of his life? Maybe he was. I don't know, right? The whole situation was bad, and we don't want cops shooting people. We don't want people getting shot by cops. We don't want these types of situations to bubble over as they have, because it's just not worth it, right? What was gained out of this whole thing yesterday? Nothing. Literally nothing. Okay, I know a lot of people out there are saying, what else can we do? Well, I've shared a lot of ideas about that, but this is not it. Okay, we have a dead woman, and we have 3 other dead people as a result of this. Trump just conceded anyways. Didn't change a damn thing. It's not useful. It's not useful behavior. Scott Adams today posted, he was asking a question, is there any scenario in which Secret Service or other security at the Capitol building would shoot one protester as an intentional strategy to discourage others? And Dan Bongino, who apparently just got banned from Twitter today, says, he used to be a Secret Service agent, by the way. He says their use of force guidelines are clear, and unless there's a threat of SPI or death, so that must mean like serious personal injury or death, they cannot use deadly force. He says, I'm sure the use of force guidelines are clear. Separately, I wonder if we saw a known military strategy outside of the guidelines or a pure mistake. Did not look like a mistake. And when I watched that video, that's exactly what I thought. It looked like to me that the shots were preemptive, that this person was kind of coming up through the window, and there was a big crowd of individuals behind her. So he just put somebody down in order to stop them coming through the window. And if that is the case, that doesn't sound like it's Secret Service policy. Now, again, I don't know that this is Secret Service or Capitol Police. I'm going to guess Dan Bongino probably knew and was responding accordingly. But it's one of these things that it's a tough position to be in as an officer, because you really don't know what they're going to be doing. But they were sort of behind a number of doors. There were cops behind them. We'll leave that ultimate decision up to you, I think. Now, another interesting thing that we discovered when I was poking around on the internet is a statement from Mayor Muriel Bowser. This is her on Twitter. She says, to be clear, now, before I get into it, she posted this on January 5th. Okay, she says, to be clear, one day before the riots happened. To be clear, the DC is not requesting other federal law enforcement personnel and discourages any additional deployment without immediate notification to and consultation with the Metro PD if such plans are underway. So she's saying, don't send any federal law enforcement. We don't want anybody else to come help us with this stuff. We've got it under control. They didn't have it under control, as we saw. So why on January 5th, the day before this happened, was she literally sending other people out there saying, or sending a letter saying we don't want any additional help? Not a good letter, right? They could have used a lot more help. This is the letter that she sent over to the Honorable Jeffrey Rosen, the Honorable Ryan McCarthy. Jeffrey Rosen is the acting U.S. Attorney General. Remember, Bill Barr just left, so Jeffrey Rosen's now in place. Ryan McCarthy is the Secretary of the Army over at the Pentagon. We've got the Honorable Chris Miller, who is the Secretary of Defense. She sends this letter on January 5th, one day before the electoral vote counting day, what we saw yesterday. Dear all of you three people, as the law enforcement agency charged with protecting residents and visitors throughout the District of Columbia, the MPD, the Metropolitan Police Department, is prepared for this week's First Amendment activities. MPD has coordinated with its federal partners, namely the U.S. Park Police, U.S. Capitol Police, and the U.S. Secret Service, all of whom regularly have uniformed personnel protecting federal assets in the District of Columbia. This week, MPD has additional logistical support of unarmed members of the D.C. National Guard who will work under the direction of and in coordination with the Metro PD. The District of Columbia government has not requested personnel from any other federal law enforcement agencies. To avoid confusion, we ask that any request for additional assistance be coordinated using the same process and procedures. We are mindful that in 2020, MPD was expected to perform the demanding task of policing large crowds while working around unidentifiable personnel in the DC without proper coordination. Unidentifiable personnel, in many cases armed, caused confusion among residents and visitors and could become a national security threat with no way for the MPD or federal law enforcement to decipher armed groups. To be clear, the District of Columbia is not requesting other federal law enforcement personnel and discourages any additional deployment without immediate notification and consultation with MPD if such plans are underway. The protection of persons and property is our utmost concern and responsibility. MPD is well trained and prepared to lead the law enforcement coordination and response to allow for the peaceful demonstration of First Amendment rights in the District of Columbia. So talk about a letter that did not age well. Okay, she's saying, we're good. We have this stuff covered. We don't need anything because the last time you sent stuff, it was problematic. So therefore, don't send anybody else. We've got all this figured out. They didn't have it figured out, right? It was a pretty bad scene. And once again, we're going to go back to Ian Miles Cheong, who says they won't show you this on TikTok, where the narrative is that the police let the rioters in. There were multiple layers of security. The mob broke through at different points, and the officers withdrew at indefensible areas. And we're going to play this video. It's not good, right? The police just got totally overwhelmed. Mayor Bowser, I think, should have, well, hindsight is 2020, right? She didn't know this was going to happen, but still, there was this sort of acknowledgement that any other federal forces didn't need to be there. That turned out to be a pretty huge mistake. So here is this video that was on TikTok. All right, so you can see. All right, well, it's not a good scene. So we're not going to play the whole thing, but it's not a good scene. Didn't work out well. And now we're seeing a major response from all of the politicians, as is the case. Why would they not come out and try to do something about it? Chuck Schumer said what happened today at the U.S. Capitol, what happened yesterday at the U.S. Capitol was an insurrection against the United States incited by the president. The president must not hold office one day longer. He says the quickest and most effective way it can be done today is to remove the president from office by invoking the 25th Amendment. If the vice president and the cabinet refuse to stand up, Congress must reconvene to impeach President Trump. He goes on, he says, that was his statement. This is the official statement that was posted. Congress should reconvene if they do not invoke the 25th Amendment. Nancy Pelosi also joined in on the feeding frenzy. Here she is.
Yesterday, the President of the United States incited an armed insurrection against America. The gleeful desecration of the U.S. Capitol, which is the temple of our American democracy, and the violence targeting Congress are horrors that will forever stain our nation's history, instigated by the President of the United States. That's why it's such a stain. In calling for this seditious act, the President has committed an unspeakable assault on our nation and our people. I joined the Senate Democratic leader in calling on the Vice President to remove this president by immediately invoking the 25th Amendment. If the Vice President and Cabinet do not act, the Congress may be prepared to move forward with impeachment. That is the overwhelming sentiment of my caucus.
All right, so there's Nancy Pelosi, who, you know, we were trying to take a look.
Secretary of...
Well, no, you can't see it, I don't think, from that one.
yesterday.
So here she is. Let's take a look at this one. Look at this. So she is standing, I don't know, 20 feet away from everybody else at a podium with literally nobody else around her, and she's still wearing a mask, right? It's just a show at this point. You know, this is not protecting anybody. This is her just making a statement, and it is really difficult to actually hear her because she's speaking through a mask. If you had a little bit of difficulty hearing that, it's because you can't hear her. The volume's all the way up. She's got a mask on. So, you know, it's just kind of ridiculous. She has another statement where it's almost impossible to hear what she has to say. Here she is again.
Secretary of, then Attorney General Barr, do you subscribe to the presidency of Donald Trump after the act of sedition he committed yesterday? It's next Postmaster General, but that's in when our founders put it together. Interior. The list goes on. Ask each member of the cabinet, do they stand by these actions?
Doing a little sign language there. I also talk with my hands a lot. So, all right. So, okay. So we got two people now. We got the House Majority Leader, Nancy Pelosi, the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer. They're saying we're going to invoke, you need to invoke the 25th Amendment, Mr. Vice President Pence. If you don't, we're going to impeach him again. Okay. He's out of office on the 20th. 13 days. He's out of office in 13 days, but they really want to just skewer him a little bit. Now, this is interesting. Now that Donald Trump has sort of conceded and said we're going to be transitioning on the 20th, I wonder why he did that. I wonder if there was some sort of a deal made. Total speculation. Obviously, that news just broke, but it would be curious, you know, if he said, if he used that as leverage, if he went in and said, okay, you know, Mike Pence came to his office and said, we're about to invoke the 25th, my man. What are you going to do about that? And there was a deal made where he's going to peacefully transition out, and they're not going to invoke the 25th Amendment, and they're not going to try to impeach him. You know, was that a deal that was made, or is Trump doing this stuff independently? I don't know. Or was he doing it independently, and they're still going to try to invoke the 25th Amendment or impeach him with 13 days left? I don't know, but let's take a look at the 25th Amendment. It says here, in the case of removal of the president from office or of his death or resignation, the VP becomes the president. That's in Section 1. Okay, Section 2 says, whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the vice president, the president shall nominate a vice president who shall take office upon confirmation by a majority vote of both houses. So that has happened before, right? A vice president has died or resigned. I think that happened in the Nixon White House. And so he appointed Gerald Ford, and Gerald Ford was confirmed by the Congress, so Section 2 was enacted. Section 3, whenever a president transmits that the president pro tem of the Senate and transmits to the president pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House written declaration that he is unable to charge the powers or duties of the office, and until he transmits written declaration to the contrary, the powers and duties shall be discharged by the president as acting president. Okay. And we have seen this happen. I remember a couple times during the Bush years that Bush had to go, I think he had to get a colonoscopy, if I remember correctly. And so they give you anesthesia. He goes under, he transmits over to the House and the Senate that it was, you know, I'm going under for this procedure. I'm not going to be available or awake. And so they would just very temporarily, they gave the presidency as acting president to Dick Cheney. And then as soon as George Bush came back up and he was done with the procedure, they transferred that power back over under Section 3 to George Bush. So that has also happened a number of times. Now, Section 4 is the juicy part. Okay. This is where the cabinet can actually sort of pull the president away and install the vice president as the president. Whenever the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may provide by law, they transmit to the president pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting president. Okay, so I mean that's I think you've seen that probably in different TV shows and movies where sort of all of the cabinet members are sort of conspiring together to go and say, well, this guy's out of control, and they in a written statement they try to get the Speaker and the Senate and they try to get everybody surrounded, and then the president comes breaking through and saves the day, and all of the cabinet members were wrong, and the whole 25th Amendment thing goes out the window. I think that was in 24 with Jack Bauer and President Palmer. I love that show. And so, that is something that could theoretically happen. When that does, what happens next? When the president transmits to the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House his written declaration that no inability exists, so that the president says, no, that's ridiculous, he shall resume the powers and duties of his office unless the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive department or whatever Congress says transmits within 4 days to the president of the Senate and the Speaker their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers of his duties of office. Thereafter, Congress can decide the issue. They have to assemble within 48 hours for that purpose if they're not in session. If Congress, within 21 days after the receipt of the latter written declaration, or if Congress is not in session within 21 days after Congress is required to assemble, determines by 2/3 vote of both houses that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall continue to discharge the same as acting president. Otherwise, the president shall resume the powers and duties of his office. All right, so what that means is the president, so the vice president can corral a number of different cabinet members and say this president is ineffective and we got to remove him from office. The president can respond back and say, no, I'm not, I'm good to go. Certain period of time has to elapse. Congress has to get back in session. Then they have to have a vote. If Congress votes by 2/3, majority in both houses, president is gone and the vice president assumes control. Are they going to do all that in the next 13 days? Probably not. Is this a lot of bluster to try to take advantage of what we saw happen yesterday? Probably just more political posturing. But it could be possible that they were going to do it, and then Trump said, "I'll make that video." Did they hold him under a gun and say, "Go make that video, otherwise we're gonna remove you from office"? Who knows? Would be pure speculation at this point in time. All right, let's get into the super chats. We're gonna go a little bit quickly on these. Sometimes we have a lot of them, so I'm gonna go a little bit quickly on them. And I think there were some from yesterday that we didn't get to. Yesterday on the program, my computer just froze. I pressed a button, I think to switch to Twitter or something like that, and the entire thing locked up. I have this one PC is handling a number of different screens. Those 4 screens back there, those are all 4K screens, and so they require a lot of bandwidth from my display card, and then we have another display card that is powering these 2 screens in front of me, and I don't know what happened, but the whole thing just locked up. Has never happened before. Hopefully it doesn't happen again, but I apologize for the abrupt ending last night. I was frustrated that happened, but we're going to get right back to it today. So let's get started. We've got Sergey Demenimov, who says, would that public opinion matter now that they control the media, can censor anyone and have all branches of control of government under control? Yeah, it's concerning. I mean, I think that there needs to be a new media. I think that there needs to be a diversification of the media entities around the country. And I think that's going to be the natural consequence. You're going to see a massive divide in this country. If Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, if they're just censoring literally all the conservatives, Dan Bongino, who knows whom else, yeah, there will be a bubbling up of new media. And it may be really rough for the time being. Rumble's rough. Parler's rough. Like, they're not even fun to use, in my opinion. I still have a lot of problems with Rumble. I've been uploading my stuff there, and it's still like, meh. The platform is just immature. Doesn't mean I'm not going to continue to upload my stuff there, right? It's going to be still there and available because I want to support that new media, but we are going to have to see a diversification of this stuff. And any hopes of reforming Section 230 right now is, I think, totally out the window, given the fact that you're right, Sergey, they control everything. We have another one from Sharon, who says, you've got a good point, Rob, about letting them run things, kind of like sending folks to North Korea for a while, see how they like communism. Yeah, I think that, there's a lot of, good to see you, Sharon. There's a lot of real concern that they're going to wreck the country. And if they got everything they wanted, then they would wreck the country. But they're not going to get everything that they want. I was in a group call today. I'm a part of this networking group, and we had this call. And there were a lot of people on there who are other entrepreneurs and business people and thinkers and whatever. And there was a financial advisor who was giving this talk. And he was saying, everybody's kind of concerned about what's the market going to look like? What's the stock market look like? What are some of these tax proposals? How do those change things? And everybody's just trying to get their bearings straight, business owners and people who have employees and have a lot at stake when these rule changes come into effect. And what he said is, listen, you're going to hear a lot of hysteria out there. You're going to hear a lot of people saying that the world is ending, the sky is falling, and all of that stuff. He said, look, every time a candidate runs for office, they run with a list this big. It's huge. We're going to do this. We're going to do all of this stuff. What ends up happening, though, look at their term at the end of the conclusion of the term. What have they actually gotten done? It's this, okay? It's this list. Just a couple little things that actually get done. And he was saying, look, everything else, all of the other major institutions of power, even though the people at the top change, most of these mega structures throughout our society don't. And so we're going to still see a lot of stability. America's not over because on January 21st, Joe Biden is sitting in the Oval Office. We got a lot of work to do, I think, as a freedom-loving segment demographic of this country, but I don't think that it's over by any stretch. We have another one from Helen who says, who will push for, quote, we the people agenda since the Democrats have the House, Senate, and the president? The winner takes all. Well, there'll be another set of elections in 2 years. The entire House of Representatives will be up for it, and the entire 1/3 of the Senate will be up. Okay, so in 2 short years, I would expect to see a major swing in the pendulum of power, and the Democrats at that point, I would presume, they don't have it all again. I know a lot of people are, well, they'll steal and cheat it and all that stuff. Well, yeah, that's why there's a lot of work to do in these 2 years. Can't just sit down and just expect the whole thing to change, right? A lot of people, I think locally, a lot of, your local GOP, Republican Party, a Libertarian Party, I'd like to see, even more parties come in with new ideas. There's work to do, no question about it. We have Nano Bingo who says, timing after Arizona, infiltrators incite mob. Enter grounds building, few police impeach, Biden prepared, elector challenges possibly dropped. Yeah, so, right? The power structure was very well served by what happened in the Capitol yesterday. It took all of the wind out of any electoral objections. It took all the wind out of any evidence that was presented. I'm not saying that they were in on it, but it certainly helped them. We have another one from Gold Chump who says, 2 wrongs don't make a right, but 2 rights make an airplane. Thank you for that, Gold Chump. A little bit of levity. I said that yesterday. I said, didn't your mom tell you that 2 wrongs don't make a right? My mom told me that all the time. I grew up with 2 younger brothers, and it was always, well, what about that? What about this? Well, my little brother did that to me. So so shouldn't I get to do that? And she said, Robert, 2 wrongs don't make a right, young man. And so she was watching the show yesterday. She sent me a text right after. She said, you're right. 2 wrongs don't make a right. So thanks, Gold Chump. We have another one from Patrick. Says, Kamala and Biden are just puppets. Thank you. Never miss your program. From Belgium with love. I totally agree with that, Patrick. Yes, thank you, by the way. Awesome. Good to have you from Belgium. What a cool thing. I would love to go there at some point in time. I want to do a little bit of world traveling at some point once this COVID stuff is over. I like to say that. Every time somebody comments from out of the country, I'm like, yeah, I'd like to go to Belgium. I'd like to go to the Czech Republic. I'd like to go all these places. We'll see if that happens. But I would agree with that. I think that Kamala and Biden are just, they're just getting slotted in here. It's going to be the same administration that we saw under Obama, just like when Obama was in office. It was the same administration that we saw under Clinton, and so on, right? Around and around we go. It's the same big, group of individuals who just kind of sweep into power. So are they going to ruin the country? No, I mean, there's too much money to be made off ruining rather than ruining the country. We have Friedman Google who said, see, fixthecourt.com, fix term limits. Please read and sign if you agree. It will go to your congressman. We need to drain the swamp and stop the abuse. I am not affiliated with them in any way. All right, so I will check that out. Fixthecourt.com /fix/term limits. And I'm not sure what that is proposing. But if you're talking about putting term limits on the U.S. Supreme Court, that's a tall order. I think that would take a constitutional amendment in order to modify their current life tenure. And so that's a big proposal, right? You got to have 2/3 of both houses of Congress, and you also have to have 3/4 of the states. So it's a big, big ordeal, but I will certainly take a look at that. Thanks for the support, Friedman Google, and I thank you for your support. You gave us another really big one yesterday, and I thank you for that. We have Sultan of Smoke. Says, been watching for 3 weeks and keep coming back despite some disagreements. You deserve it. Thank you, Rob and the staff. Well, thank you, Sultan of Smoke. That's good. I mean, that means we're doing a good job, right? We're sort of telling you like it is, and I certainly wouldn't want you to agree with me on everything because that's just boring, right? I watch a lot of people who I disagree with probably half the time. I shake my head going, oh my God, are you kidding me? But I'll be tuning in tomorrow, right? Because it makes you think, and I appreciate that. I think that's the nicest compliment of all, right? It's a nicer compliment than I agree with everything you do. It's, well, I disagree with about half of it, but I still keep tuning in. Thank you, Sultan. We have another one from Kiki Schuster who says, thanks for being you, with a nice super chat. Thanks, Kiki. You do the same. Thanks so much for the support. We have SSW Lamb says, thanks, Rob, for your optimistic outlook and this channel. Did you hear about the major media outlets going to pay dinners with a CCP foreign mission? No, I did not, but I would not even think twice about that, right? I think, China has its tentacles in just about every facet of American life. And you can see this when, you have all of these individuals out there, let's just call them that. I can't think of a better word, but they will be very, very, very vocal and sort of loud about certain issues like human rights and about, anti-racism and about certain things, unless it interferes with their business in China, right? China basically has its tentacles in everywhere, and people don't want to speak out about China. So why wouldn't they be, just hosting dinners and loving up all of the people in our power structure, because they just gobble that stuff up, as we know. Good to see you, SSW Lamb. We have Nano Bingo, who says, can I save tonight's conversations or download them? Election 2020. Yeah, so there are different websites that you can use to download YouTube videos. I think it's, just Google download a YouTube video, and it will allow you to do that. And all of the slides that we put in, that we just covered today, are going to be in the Discord server. So if you want the slides, Miss Faith right back there, she makes them available for you to download and do whatever you want with them, which is a good record, by the way. We're starting a website. I'm not sure if it's quite ready yet. Maybe it is, but we're starting a website where we're going to transcribe all of these episodes and post the slides there as well, so that we have a little bit of a record, which is a little bit scary because, the show is largely stream of consciousness. A lot of the time I don't really have what I'm going to say planned. I just go through the news and then we'll sort of ad-lib things. And sometimes I get off the show and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or I have a different opinion the next hour, whatever. But we're going to transcribe those because there is some good information here. We've covered a lot of lawsuits. We've covered a lot of stuff. We've got screenshots. We've got receipts on everything that we've covered here. And I want to make that available so that if somebody says, God, what were they talking about on that show about that one lawsuit, because they want to use that information for their own project or for their own channel, we just want to give it all away. So we're going to start that. It's over at watchingthewatchers.tv. I think it's still a little bit under construction, but you can go check that out if you'd like. But yeah, this stuff, it's all public content. Thanks for asking there, Nano Bingo. We have another one from Rob Minion. Says, chaos and uprising should be a last resort, but it must always remain an option against tyranny. Today sucked, but at what point is it warranted? I think it would be warranted. And I'm not encouraging this type of behavior at all. But if the government, it becomes violent to you, at that point in time, you have no choice. Literally, you're backed into a corner. That's not what happened yesterday, right? The Congress was in session. They were doing their due process, and they were going through the motions, and they barged in and wrecked that. Therefore, it's illegitimate. Thank you. We have another one from Patrick. Says, I'm watching America for years to know what's coming to Europe. I'm a little worried now, which is very interesting, Patrick America. I thought it was kind of the opposite, right? Americans were always concerned about becoming more like Europe, and looks like that's flipping a little bit. Good to have you here. We have another one from World War Wit. Why are no prosecutors investigating obvious illegal votes? This is clearly aiding and abetting after the fact by abuse of office. So, Bill Barr said that they were. I don't know if they were or not. We didn't see anything. We didn't see any memorandum. We did see a memorandum from him saying that I authorize an investigation into electoral fraud, but he never found anything. And the question is, if he wasn't sort of driving that momentum in the Department of Justice, why would any of the lower level prosecutors do that either, right? If they found something, what would happen to that information, knowing that according to the standard notions that Joe Biden's going to be coming into office soon? Why would, if you were in the Department of Justice that is going to be governed by the next Attorney General, who looks like it's going to be Merrick Garland, who you may remember from the old Supreme Court nomination under Obama that failed. He's not on the Supreme Court, but if you were prosecuting electoral fraud that your boss committed, it's not good for your career. So how hard was the Department of Justice looking? We have all right, we have Kevin Bowman, who says, what's wrong with this country? How can we allow this BS, fake media to go on? Facebook and Twitter need to be broken up and fined big time. I would agree with the problem that you're identifying. I don't really know what the solution is. Do you break them up? Do you expose them to more liability? Do you get rid of Section 230 and allow them to be sued? A lot of options there, but I do think that they are a problem, right? They are essentially monopolies. They have total control over certain spheres of conversation in our country, and they've gotten that way because we have been protecting them under Section 230 for 20 years. So they're totally immune. They've been allowed to blossom because the government is so incompetent that they can't they can't modify the rules in the middle of the game. They set these rules when the internet was young. Now the internet's mature. The same rules still apply to these massive conglomerates. The biggest companies in the world protect them that a lot of other industries don't have that same type of protection. Why not? It's probably time to revisit that. We have Kenny 1B who says Antifa leader next to Ashli when killed. Siege not organic. Provocateurs dressed as combat with tools and equipment. Siege happening during Trump's speech. FBI warned of this weeks ago. Police in action. Thanks, Kenny B. We have another one coming in from Beth Coddington. Hey, Robert, Faith, and Ma, did you see Harris actually stole a story from MLK and made it about herself? What a piece of work. Yeah, well, it's two peas in a pod, right? Joe Biden had a lot of plagiarism in his background, and now Kamala Harris does also. So, right, they're a match made in heaven. We have another one from Ron B. I value my honor for all veterans and all military past and present. That is a disgrace to all of our military. So I'm not sure what you're talking about, what specifically there, Ron, but I do also honor them. And I think that they should be admired and revered. We have Jay Sim says, me and my wife just canceled Facebook account for good, period. I do not need them, period. Facebook it's tough. You know, Facebook right now, especially if you get on there, it's very vitriolic. I mean, it's visceral. People are angry. It's hard. Truthfully, I really don't go on it much. I've been sort of trying to protect myself from some of the commentary. I get enough of it, and you know, it's not a bad idea. I think your mental sanity might be well served. Liberty or Death says big tech banning President Trump from their platform will turn him into a martyr. They're thinking he'll go away. Instead, he'll grow even stronger. Exactly right, Liberty or Death. I think that's 100% true. I think that the more people are told to sit down and shut up, the worse it's going to get. At some point, they're going to organize. They're going to become strong and powerful. I hope it's a force for good, not something that boils over into some violence or like anything that we saw yesterday. But yeah, people are going to realign themselves. And if the Republicans think that it's just going to go back to the good old days pre-Trump, that is not happening. I can guarantee you that. Not going to happen. Liberty or Death, Pelosi now says walls work. We'll have the Army Corps of Engineers build 7 for an unscalable wall around the Capitol. Yeah, suddenly the walls are looking like a lot better option. We have Kevin Bowman says, they all say they want equal justice for all. What about Joe, Hunter, Hillary? Oh, that doesn't mean them, right? More reversal. Yeah. Yeah, rules for thee, but not for me. They're going to use a political maneuver or a political an issue that happens in our society for a political benefit. That's just standard operating procedure. Ron B is in the house, says, FYI, nobody got arrested for all the rioting in Minnesota, Atlanta, Georgia, and other cities. That was the Wendy's in Atlanta, Georgia. They made a few arrests since. And yeah, I'm not sure about that. I mean, we just saw that there are a lot of different bond companies or I would say services. A lot of people were collecting money. I mean, didn't even LeBron James donate, a ton of money to help bail people out? So if people are getting bailed out, well, they have to be arrested in order to get bailed out. So I'm sure that there were arrests with the BLM protests, but that's fine. Like there should have been. If they were burning buildings down and breaking down federal courthouse buildings, then yeah, they should have been arrested for that, because you have to stop that stuff. That's not a lawful, legitimate way of protest. But for them to come out and say that nobody yesterday got in trouble because this was all sort of this, grand orchestrated coup that had no repercussions instigated by the president is just false. I just showed you hundreds of names of people who were arrested. We have another one from Rajesh Shakar says, is this the end of Trump political saga? Given what happened, can he run in 2024? Merkel slamming Trump. Why did she interfere in U.S. internal affairs? So, I would say that I think this is the end of the Trump era in terms of Trump being the leader of the ticket, right? I don't think that him being the top of the ticket in 2024 would be a good idea. I think it's time to sort of, find some new energy, find some new candidates, find some new people who are more in alignment with some of the same ideals that the Trump movement spawned. But certainly, Trump is so visceral. He's so antagonistic at this point in time that I don't think the country would be well served with him at the top of the ticket. And I'm not sure that he could win, actually. But we'll see. I mean, I think he's still going to be a major power broker, like Liberty and Death just said. I think he's going to be considered a martyr here. And there's some good reason for it. And that's going to lead him with, he's going to have a lot of power as a result. Joseph Cole says it's okay to riot and loot in our neighborhoods. Now it's in their house and it's sedition or treason. Hypocrisy at its finest. I'm now an independent. What, exactly right. Yeah. So there you go. Right. Yeah, it's a totally different standard. Congress, they get really mad when their days are interrupted, but they're also okay with, your neighborhood's getting burnt to the ground. Here in Arizona, there's a mall called Fashion Square that was, wrecked and rioted and all this stuff. And it's just like, it's not that big of a deal unless it is the Congress people, right? They'll lock your ass down. You can't do anything. They're free to go out to hair salons. They're free to go out and do all the things they want to do, fancy dinners in LA and so on, but not you. If you do something wrong, they're going to arrest you. They're going to literally in Canada break into your home and drag you out of there. So that's just par for the course. We have Rajesh Shakar says Biden may pardon them for healing win them over. So I'm not sure who you're thinking Biden's going to pardon. I can guarantee you it's not going to be the Trump people. We have another one from Miss Scorpio. He was also at the BLM protest. They have pictures of him. So Miss Scorpio, I think she's talking about the bullhorn guy. Yeah, he's an Arizona guy at BLM. Look, a lot of these people, they just like to meddle. They like to go and be agitators. That guy puts on a costume and he just goes and he plays this character almost, and he gets a lot of attention from it. And he probably sells something or does something. And, this is kind of his grift. He likes to go around and do those things. There are those people that exist. We have another one from Michael. Came over on a text message. Said, tomorrow I want to ask you, can the responsible people be charged with 4 counts of murder? These people would have never been in the position had the election been clean. Rob, if new evidence come to light this week, can they do a special session and overturn this election? So 2 very good questions. Thanks, Michael. Number 1, could the people responsible be charged with 4 counts of murder? So I don't know what people you're talking about, but the people, the officer who shot that person, probably not. That person, Ashli, was shot and killed by a police officer. I don't think he's going to be charged with murder for that. Because it was, he has qualified immunity and he was protecting the Capitol building. So he's not going to be charged with murder. Your next question might be about felony murder, whether somebody can be charged with murder for sort of instigating it. The analogy that I used yesterday was the bank robbery. If you're the driver of the bank getaway vehicle, you can be charged with murder if somebody in the vehicle went inside and shot the bank teller, because it's called felony murder. And so what you would have to do is find individuals who were instigating her to be there, or this was part of a grand conspiracy, and they're going to charge everybody with felonies, and then they're going to pin the murder of Ashli on the people who were there with her. I mean, you can make that argument. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that her murder her death is probably not going to be ruled a murder. It'll be ruled a justified shooting. And if new evidence comes to light, can Congress do a special session? No, they can't. It's over. The game's over. They can do a special session, and what are they going to talk about? According to the rules under the Section 15 of the U.S. Code in Title 3, I think, Title 10, one of them, it's over. It's done. And Trump has conceded. So nothing else there. We got Christopher Muriel says there's a court case filed by Georgia voter GA on 115 regarding irregularities in the Senate race. Okay, so there you go, right? The Senate is probably going to be just buried in litigation, very close margins there as well. So there may be a repeat of electoral fraud arguments that take place in Georgia for the foreseeable future. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Christopher. We have Snyder Badkin, who says, check out the nations in action. On their website, there's an affidavit from an Italian intelligence officer claiming to have been involved in fraud. So, there's going to be a lot more fraud claims, I'm sure of it, but it doesn't matter at this point. I know it stinks. It doesn't matter for this election. Let's put it that way, right? Fixing some of the electoral problems that exist throughout the state is necessary. It's critical, right? We want more free, fair, and fast elections. We want that done and implemented. But any new evidence that comes to light is just, it's too little too late. I know it's terrible. It's terrible news if you want the election to be changed, but it's done. I mean, when Mike Pence read that final order, that's it. Trump has conceded. And so it's time to think about rebuilding and think about, how we can be more useful in the future rather than trying to overturn this last election. We have another one, says from S Love, was there was there yesterday, have a video of a guy with a megaphone inciting the crowd, marching to the Capitol to run over and help overtake the Capitol. White supremacist. Guy in the video, definitely not white. Crowd marched by, ignoring him. What's up, S Love? Thanks for that nice long message and that nice super chat. You know, I don't think I saw that video. I watched a lot of videos yesterday, but I don't know that I saw that one. A guy in a video who is definitely not white. They're saying he was a white supremacist. Reminds me of that Dave Chappelle show clip where he's the leader of the KKK and he's hosting a Klan rally, and then he's a blind guy and they know he's blind, but then he takes his hat off and it's a black guy. Dave Chappelle's the best. Now, I don't know what happened, S-Love, on that yesterday. I mean, I think it's, you know, I would guess if I had to just venture out and just guess, I would presume that there were a number of different factions there. Probably white supremacists, probably Antifa, probably BLM, probably just regular good old, you know, happy-go-lucky Trump supporters who are never up to no good. You know, they're always good. And it's hard to make sense of the mess. A lot of different factions all sort of mingling together. It's tough. Good to have you here, though. We have Sasha Sisha, who says, they call us for unity, but at the same time, they attack and divide us. The Republican Party is dead to me. I hope our country does not evolve into China. U.S. Capitol, the place where corrupt people are born. Yeah, I mean, I have no sympathy left for the Republican Party at all. Honestly, none. So if they split into 3 factions, 2 factions, whatever, that's okay with me. We have Wesley Malutama, who says, very good podcast. Thank you for your work. Those senators didn't really want to object. They took the easy way out as soon as it was available. Yes. Thank you, Wesley, for that. Completely agree with you, right? They were doing cartwheels back in their Senate offices going, oh, yes, perfect. So what do you mean? How long is this going to last? All right, 6 hours, that's perfect. So they're doing the mental calculations. So it's 1 o'clock now, 6 hours. All right, we'll be back in there by about 8 o'clock p.m. It was later than that, I think, before they got started, maybe like closer to 10. And they went for a few more hours. Boom, it's over. It all happened in the dead of night. Nobody had to go on record. Nobody had to make speeches. They just got to sit down and just go, all right, nope, no objections. And it made their life easier. We have John Crute says, false flag attack. How many Secret Service agents are assigned to each senator, House rep, not to mention the VP Pence? They are never without security detail. Yeah, that was my point. You know, I'm not a Secret Service person, but I would imagine that the Capitol building with 100 senators in there, well, 99, were all in there, and we had something like 430 U.S. House representatives, 435 total. I don't know if they were all there. It's the entire government, basically. It just doesn't have the Supreme Court judges and Trump, right? The rest of the country, the rest of the government is in that one building, and they can't stop, a couple thousand people from breaking in. If that is the number, I think it's probably closer to a few hundred that were actually trying to get in the building. But they can't manage that? That's a scary sight. That's a scary thing. And it's certainly concerning. But it doesn't surprise me because that's what the government does. We have Cyril Herv. Rob, Pence was very loyal to Trump for more than 4 years. Now he's getting trashed by him for following the Constitution. Is loyalty a one-way traffic? Yeah, I actually agree with you on that. I think what Donald Trump has been doing to Mike Pence is not okay. It's very Trumpy. It's the thing that Trump does, right? You're only good to him until you're not, and then you're dead to him. And I think that is just a sad way to live life. I mean, honestly, Mike Pence has been a very loyal, very, very loyal vice president, very good, very effective, took on all the responsibilities that were given to him, ran with COVID, ran with a number of other things, very effective, good vice president, and was a good, strong advocate for the Trump administration. And as soon as he doesn't do something, he's basically dead to him, which was disappointing. I mean, you would like to think that the president would have a little bit more sense of appreciation for those who have served him, but that's not the case. S. Love says, if they think we are going to forget, we'll see. We have 6 years to remove them. If they don't fix the voting, they lose anyway. No one will vote. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of momentum here. There's going to be a lot of people who want to go back to the old way of things, but there's going to be a lot of people who want to to change things up a little bit. And I'm in that latter camp. Wolfgang Dayo is in the house. Wolfgang says, there has been an insurrection rebellion for the last year, Amendment 14, Section 3, so those Democrats are illegitimate office holders. Good to see you, Wolfgang. Hope you're doing well, my friend. I know this stuff is a little bit stressful. Kevin Bowman says, so who is the parliamentarian? No idea. I don't know any, Mike Pence knows. Apparently that person, though, can decide what slate of electors to handle. So it's a pretty powerful position. Used to be delegated to the vice president, but now this parliamentarian's pretty effective. We have LD 2020 says, so at the next election, will we vote for the president and the parliamentarian? Is VP even going to be a thing from January 6, 2021 forward? I think so, but you're right. I mean, why would the vice president delegate that responsibility to somebody else? Just own it. Just say, no, I'm not going to do it. Okay. That's ridiculous. But he didn't. He said, well, that kind of was my power, but I'm just going to slide that right over here to you, the parliamentarian. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody's going to be mad at you. I'm just going to say you're the one responsible for it. Wasn't me. So he's just going to take whatever she hands him and run with it. And I think it was a she because there were two women next to him yesterday. We have another one from Mike Murphy. If a state like Texas wanted to separate, could they legally do so? So I don't think so, right? There's no real precedent for that. The last time a state tried to leave, there was a civil war over that. It was not a good thing. It was very bad for the country. A lot of people died. Don't want to see that again. But, times have changed. And are we in a position where, states are going to be shooting with each other? I don't know. I would certainly hope not. If Texas wanted to leave, they could probably make a pretty good argument for it. And if the country does go as badly as everybody's expecting it to, then might sound like a good option. We have Ryan J, who says his ego legacy and will to win is too big. He said, I'll never concede multiple times, mentions the next administration, but never Biden like Pompeo. Executive Order 18 thoughts. So I think anything from the executive order, it's too little too late. If an executive order comes out next week that says the whole thing was stolen, which we're not expecting it to do that, but if it were, it's too late, right? The only way to remove Joe Biden from office now is to have him resign or for him to be impeached. Those are the rules. Thanks, Ryan. We have Teek, who says, hi, Rob, from Montana. Good to see you. We appreciate you. Such a calming part of our day. Can you speak to how the far left Congress calling for arrests of Holly and to the cleansing of all Trump supporters? Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I can, Teek. It's awful behavior. I saw that. I don't know that we clipped it for today, but there was some columnist somewhere. I saw it. I think I saved it in my Twitter bookmarks where he said there needs to be this massive cleansing of this. Now that Trump's gone, that's great, but Trump is just the tip of the spear. We got to cleanse everybody else because this is so dangerous. I don't like that type of language. I don't like talking about cleansing, any demographic, any group of individuals off this country. It's troubling language. It's also troubling that they're literally, censoring people and banning people off the platforms. If they can take the President Trump off of a platform, what about anybody else, right? What about us, the other people you listen to? It's concerning. I don't know what else to say about that, right? I don't know why they get a pass on that language. They shouldn't, but they get a pass because it's self-serving. It serves their readership. It serves their demographics. It does something for them. So I wouldn't expect that language to get any better. I think that what happened yesterday is going to be the impetus for it to get worse. They're going to double down on that. They're going to say, see, we told you so. Therefore, every single Trump supporter is now tied to that ordeal, and that's not fair. We have Eric who says, could just be a coincidence, but they started the breach right as the objection started, practically stopping any last chance of evidence being presented. Yeah, it was pretty interesting timing, right? We just had a couple short speeches. We had Cruz I saw speak. I think I saw Schumer speak. Now might be it. I mean, after that, the whole thing sort of descended into chaos, and then by the time people came back into Congress, everybody was asleep. It was close to 10 o'clock on the East Coast. LD 2020 says, if they use the 25th, then would it create a precedent to use it on Biden because he's only half there anyways? Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. But the result would be Kamala Harris. You want that? I don't know. We have another one from Cyril Herv. No, Rob, the parliamentarians don't decide which slate of electors to consider, but advise the VP on the number of slates to be considered. Then the slate or slates are handed to the tellers to verify their authenticity. Okay, so Cyril, I was watching this yesterday, and when you watch, I mean, I could be wrong on this, but when I was watching the papers sort of shuffle around, I thought what Pence was saying, he would be handed a document from the parliamentarian, and he would say, you know, this is purporting to be the only slate that is authentic, and therefore this is it. And then he hands it to the tellers, they read it, and then he counts the objections and then moves on. I didn't see at any point in that where he was deciding between the two. Like, I didn't see the parliamentarian hand him Arizona 1 and Arizona 2. I just saw them hand Arizona 1. So I would think that the dismissal of Arizona 2 happened before they got to Mike Pence, which is why I was saying the parliamentarian was the one responsible for that. But I could have watched it incorrectly. But we just showed you the clip. We showed you the language that Mike Pence used from that fellow who posted it on Twitter, and that's how it read to me. I'm not sure if you missed that, but certainly the point is Mike Pence didn't decide which slate of electors to pick. At least not yesterday. Here we have another one from Sasha. Schumer is the worst. That Pearl Harbor said this is worse than Pearl Harbor. Yeah, you know, I saw a lot of that. Type of language. Pearl Harbor, right? Didn't like 2,500 people die? Like, you know, dozens of ships sunk. Put World War II, the United States, right in the middle of World War II immediately. But some windows got broken, and some people in Congress had their desks scuffed up by boots on there. Is that the same as Pearl Harbor? I don't think so. We have is this an Instagram question, Miss Faith? She said, I listened to you for an hour and you kept repeating you don't condone violence. Why? Violence worked for BLM and Antifa, didn't it? They destroyed entire cities and destroyed people's lives, and not one Democrat condemned those actions. My dislike for Biden and Harris is turning to hate. So look, if I thought that was an effective, legitimate mechanism of political grievance, you can't replicate that, right? So let's just take that and let's duplicate it. If everybody did that for every political grievance, this country would fall apart. Literally, right? I mean, physically fall apart. If we had, you know, we woke up one day and we had, trans activists out there torching buildings, and they were being responded to by the abortion activists also torching buildings. And then we had the low tax conservatives just nuking, you know, fire stations. Then we had the BLM people out there, you know, raising down whatever, police departments. That's not functional. Okay. Just because the Democrats did it doesn't mean the Republicans should do it, or that the people on the right, the people who I shouldn't even say Republicans anymore. I think they're basically dead. But, you know, the conservatives or the libertarianish or the freedom loving people, they don't have, if they were to, let me put it this way. I'm getting sort of riled up here. There are different toolboxes that different sides have. Okay. The Democrats have a very big toolbox with a lot of tools in them. They can go burn down buildings and they can go wreck their cities, and nobody's going to call them out because in their toolbox is the media. It's big tech. It's Facebook, Instagram. It's the Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, all of them. They have those tools that are going to protect them from any sort of public repercussion. We've seen that. We saw it all. We've seen it today where Michelle Obama says they were mostly peaceful, where Kamala Harris says that, you know, there's a massive disparate treatment in the justice system, one because they're white, one because they're black. Well, you know, these are all sort of interesting fabrications in their minds, but they're not reality. But they get away with these fabrications because they have cover in their toolbox. They have all of these major entities that are going to protect them. The Republicans don't have that same type of toolbox. In their toolbox, they don't have CNN. They don't have all of the mainstream media or big tech. They are without those tools. So when something like this happens, they don't have the same level of protection. The American people just look at it. In fact, it's worse. Those tools are still in the Democrats. The opponents still have that. So they still get to use those big bullhorns and those megaphones to craft the narrative about what happened. So if the Republicans continue to do that, they're trying to play the same game, but they don't have the same skills, and it's not going to work. So there needs to be other things that are done and put in place, and new ideas, new strategies, new media, new organizations, new levels of communication in order to build up the toolbox that is going to be effective moving forward. Thanks for the question. Harrow T says, if they impeach him, he can never hold office again. Is that true? I don't know if that's true. That's a great question. I don't know the answer to. If you're impeached as the president, can you run again? Interesting question. We have RCF Gum. Can Trump run in 2024 if he is removed from office or impeached? I don't know. I think so. If I had to guess, I would say he could. I would like to think that you could, right? If you get impeached and the American people say, we're going to vote for you anyways, we want you back in office, and he wants to run and try, that seems like a pretty safe check and balance for me. We have another one from Mel Furtado, says, thank you for your awesome coverage and fair point of view. Thanks, Mel. Thank you for being here. Thanks for watching. We have Sasha Sisha, who says, you know what's a threat to our democracy? Silencing speech when people don't agree with you. Trump deserves his day in court. I thought it was his rights. Yeah, I agree with that. The silencing speech thing, I think, is a very big problem. There's a lot of people out there who are championing this. Okay, Michelle Obama's talking about it. And you've got a number of other people in the media talking about cleansing, this version of speech, and it's troubling. And I would, if I were a Democrat, I would be equally concerned. I would say this is not okay, right? I really have a problem with this idea that certain political speech is dangerous. I just don't think so. I think silencing that speech is dangerous. Telling people that they can't talk about it, not giving them a forum to express their ideas, by banning Trump, by banning, these QAnoners or whomever else is sort of in that category of people who are being excommunicated from the big media platforms, they are not going to have a forum anymore. They're going to have an echo chamber, and they're just going to be communicating with themselves, patting each other on the back, saying how, the whole system needs to be overthrown. And they have some legitimate grievances. If they can't participate in the system because they've been excommunicated by the system, well, they've got a legitimate grievance against that system. And you're going to start seeing more and more of it. And I hope it doesn't get dangerous like we saw yesterday. But how can it not if you just keep telling people to sit down, shut up, and never speak again, right? We're just going to deplatform you and throw you out into the garbage. Those people are going to be angry. And this is not a small subset of people. This is a huge portion of American population. We played had a clip yesterday from Rasmussen. The numbers are still up. Like 73% of Republicans still have a lot of concerns about this election. So if they don't have a forum to communicate, that doesn't help anybody. We have Deborah RNATL. And before I move on, it doesn't help anybody, but it also, it doesn't give you the opportunity to really squash their ideas, right? If you bring a bad idea into a public forum and people can pick it apart and rebut it, that's good. That's how you get a synthesis of converging opinions. One person says X, the other person says Y. You bring them together, you come up with an XY, you come up with some sort of a resolution. But if that conversation is never happening, X's are going to be X's, Y's are going to be Y's, and they're going to hang out with a lot of X's and Y's, and they're all going to get stronger, and they're going to be sort of reinforcing their opinions. And that's going to lead to more trouble, more division, not this unity nonsense that they're claiming that they want. All right, we have Deborah. RNATL says, should Trump pardon himself and his whole family because they will surely go after him? Yes, Trump should pardon him and everybody he even remotely cares about, because I think at this point in time, the narrative here has gotten so bad that they're all going to be under suspicion and prosecution for the foreseeable future. I think a lot of it is going to be purely political in nature. That's what the pardon power is for, to stop those sort of political recriminations. We already have a history of this stuff. This happened back as soon as Donald Trump took office. Literally this time 4 years ago, Barack Obama and Joe Biden were sitting in the office. Barack Obama was talking about the Logan Act because of some stupid phone call that was made between Mike Flynn and the Russian ambassador by the name of Kislyak. And they were talking about nothing consequential, nothing even important in my mind. I read the transcripts on this program. Wasn't even a big deal. It was basically Flynn telling Kislyak, hey, hold on. Okay, don't make any major foreign policy changes because we're going to be in office in like 2 weeks. That's it. They were transitioning already. Trump had already won and been confirmed. So they were transitioning, and they were just saying there's a new incoming administration. Hold your horses. Well, that turned into the whole Mueller investigation. There was all this collusion stuff. He was impeached. He was investigated for 2 years over nonsense. So Are they going to do that again? Absolutely, they would. I would pardon everybody, and I wouldn't even have shame about it, and I would not hold it against them if he did. We have another one from Aaron Miles. Says, please get yourself a single image to span those beautiful monitors. Digitalblasphemy.com. Thanks for your channel, and your studio looks great. Thanks, Aaron. Digital Blasphemy. I will take a look at that. You know, it's kind of complicated to get all these screens working together, and I would love to do that. I downloaded some software that says it will do that so I can span across all these screens, but I just haven't played around with it. Digitalblasphemy.com. I'll take a look. Thanks, Aaron Miles. We have another one from Beth. So, Robert, are the rumors about pool boys true? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. No, they're not, actually. No, it's kind of a very boring, very hot job. Everybody was usually angry about something. Didn't work out like in the movies, unfortunately. Thanks for that nice one, Beth. We have Blas Uriarty, who says, Theodore Roosevelt broke up monopolies. We need someone like him nowadays. I agree with that. I think that the government has created sort of this really improper, intermingled relationship, big government, big corporations, sort of, this revolving door of board of directors. You work in the government, you go sit on a board somewhere, and it's just the tentacles are too intertwined between business and government. And I would like to see that go away. I think the government protects big business. I don't think you're going to see anything done about Google, Facebook, Section 230, because they basically own the government, right? They know that they're not going to do anything about them, and you have this gross monopolistic relationship that I would like to see ended. We have Brian Kang says, how about secession? Well, I hope we don't see any secession, right? I don't want the country to split apart. I love this country. I love everybody, including the Californians. We all want them to be here, but secession would be something that, might be talked about. I don't think it's reasonable or rational. I would not like to see that happen, but I understand why people want to talk about it. We have Jimmy Hernandez says, rioters hit right after objections are made and right before election fraud evidence is about to be shown to the world. It was a very interesting coincidence, wasn't it? Right at the time, just a couple speeches, everything got delayed until the end of the night. Matthew Riley says, would you be able to present over possible leaked documents that are currently classified? There's an audio recording that possibly links Obama and Italy to the election. So Matthew Riley, I don't know about that. I mean, I think so. I think that I'd be interested in learning more before I comment on that any further. Haven't seen that though. Obama and Italy to the election. Right out of the gate, that kind of doesn't pass the sniff test, but I'd be curious in learning more about it, even though I think, truthfully, even if something like that did come out, there is not a mechanism to reverse this election right now. Even if, somebody wheeled a wheelbarrow full of electoral fraud documents right into my office, what can you do about it? You got to amend the Constitution, or you got to impeach him, or you have to have him resign. Right, it's kind of over. We have another one from Kenneth Slayer who says, Candace Owens, Robert Gruler in 2024. I'd like to meet Candace. I have been following her for a long time, and she has been just kind of exploding up as a major figure out there in the media, and she's very provocative, and I happen to like that, right? I like provocateurs just a little bit, so I'd be open to that ticket. We have SSW Lamb who says, hi Robin, Miss Faith, Congressman Cleaver, a man and a woman, no prayer is how dumb the Dems are and insane political correctness. Yeah, so this is interesting also. I was talking to my stepdad about this yesterday, and we've been sort of he helps me talk through some of the issues on the show, and about how I'm going to talk through some things. And what's up, Greg? Love you, my man. We were talking a little bit about this yesterday, where the Democratic Party is really sort of an amalgamation, a conglomerate of a number of different small individual factions. And we saw this a lot during the primaries, right? Where we had sort of the AOC wing of the party. We have the people who are, really interested in political correctness. We have people who are interested in, gender issues. We've got the racial issues. There's divisions between, Hispanics and African Americans. We've seen that. There were ads, I think, when Joe Biden was going to be picking his vice president, where there was no Hispanics on that list, and they put out this just damning commercial, I think it was about 60 seconds, and saying, look how amazing Hispanics are in the United States. We contribute this to the economy. We have this many people. We have all of this support and all this stuff. Why are you not even considering us in favor of an African American candidate? And I'm thinking, whoa, like that is provocative. So, even though the Republican Party, I think, is out in the wilderness for the foreseeable future, you also have these individual factions that are a part of the Democratic Party that may end up, warring with each other to a certain extent. And you've seen this a lot, right? Sort of the debate over the Green New Deal divided some people. The debate over, health insurance and private insurance. I mean, Kamala Harris couldn't even answer that question. She kind of flipped both ways, which is why she fizzled out so badly early on in the primaries, because she just changes with the whims. And so, there may be something where people just get tired of this a women, a men. I think they can't use pronouns in the House anymore. It's like, all right, enough of this stuff. People are going to get tired of it. Thanks, SSW Lamb. Matthew Riley says, I just know that YouTube doesn't like hacked or released documents without them releasing it themselves. Okay, so I understand what you're asking, Matthew. Yeah, so I would have to be very careful about any of that stuff. YouTube just modified their policies today. They said that they were going to start giving channels strikes, I think on January 20th. They just accelerated that. So if you are now talking about and promoting sort of electoral fraud, then they're going to issue a strike on your channel. I don't think we've ever done that. I mean, we've explored some ideas here and there, but we've always just sort of done it from a news analytical perspective, talking about primary documents and legal sources and all that stuff. So, I don't think that we're in that sort of danger zone, but certainly, a lot of this stuff is provocative, and I do think that YouTube has sort of put a bubble around some of these topics. We've noticed that, sort of when these policy changes come into effect, views go down, likes go down, subscribers go down, because they're not, in my opinion, I can't say this for sure, but I think that they're sort of limiting how often we show up in the suggested next video. Or, when you click a video, when you watch one video, it will automatically play sort of a next video that YouTube thinks is appropriate for you. They want to increase your total time on site. They want you to not leave YouTube. So they will just, show another video so that you just watch it and go, hey, maybe I'll go explore that channel. And that has almost basically stopped, right? Just totally dried up. So I think that part of their bubble creation has been to limit the organic growth of some channels that are talking about some of this stuff. So, I certainly, this channel is very important to me. This show is very important to me. You all are very important to me. This is also a big part of our business, right? When we, at the end of the program, I always say, hey, if you happen to know anybody, send them our way. And so, I want to be a little bit protective of that. I've said this before. YouTube, this is YouTube's playground. We got to play by the rules. So if it were something, that provocative and sensitive, I would have to really give it some thought before I decided what to do about it. Thank you for that, though, Matthew Riley. I appreciate that. Thanks for asking about it, by the way. We have Genos Grajab, who says, regarding the criminal investigations of voter fraud, the DOJ only has jurisdiction over federal laws, and most of the violations were of state laws. That's why there are few meaningful investigations. So I understand that. I think you could probably make an argument that maybe they have jurisdiction because it involves a federal issue. Those federal votes, those certificates of ascertainment and those electoral votes are going into the federal, the federal system, right? So there may be an argument there, but you're right. I have not looked at the specific jurisdictional issues. I would be curious if the DOJ has declined to investigate any states or any allegations of fraud in states on that basis. That would be very interesting. If they said, nope, that's a state issue, we're not getting involved. I haven't seen that yet, but wouldn't surprise me. We have another one from S. Love. Conservatives will open media platform and 230 will disappear. Then we can move it out quickly. Thanks for your work. We don't always have to agree. Please boycott big tech. Thanks, S. Love. You're right. We don't always have to agree, but I still appreciate you being here. Pinky 2 says, what if someone paid for those rioters? Those payers will surprise everyone. If this info is true, if what you do's about deaths. Okay, so I think Pinky, what you're asking is if somebody is paying for those rioters and you can sort of reverse engineer how that happened, if you were able to track this back to one particular person, say who do we always pick? George Soros orchestrated all these rioters and all these mobs and everything, and you had very clear evidence that connected him to it. Yeah, you could probably charge him with a crime, but I just don't think that we're going to see that, because it does seem like it was organic to me. We have Jimmy Hernandez says, so many things are happening in the dead of night these days. Isn't that interesting how that all works out? Just buckets of votes, just making it into the polling places late at night. They just elect, or confirm the new president. at 2 in the morning. Very, very interesting. We have another one, Mommy McMomface, who says, thanks for keeping us informed. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Mommy McMomface. I love that name. I love that. You got a good sense of humor, and I appreciate that. Another one from TPRDFH51 says, parliamentarian decides matters involving rules of order of each respective body of either House or Senate. So I understand that totally. I totally understand that. But that's not what the language that Mike Pence was reading from said. He said the parliamentarian has decided that this one is true to form, and whatever that formal language was. He was referencing to them, that basically they made the decision on what slate of votes to hand me. Another one from S Love says, what I was saying was I was there. I took the video myself. He was definitely not white. That's what I was saying. It is not a white supremacist. Okay. There you go. So that's on the ground reporting. S Love was saying that there was another individual there who was rallying people to it who was not white. So how could he be a white supremacist? There you go. Right. So there's a report on the ground. Thanks for that, S Love. We have another one. Chairman of the board. Yesterday was a big hit towards our goal of meeting Miss Faith, but integrity wins in the end. Thanks, Robert. Subscribe, everyone. Yeah, we lost some subscribers yesterday. Bummer. Yeah, we had a big goal this year. We're going the other direction. First week is not off to a good start, but that's okay, right? A lot of people, I think, around the internet have seen that. A lot of people are sort of, realigning, and that's okay. If they don't like this channel, if they don't like, what we're talking about, they can go find a different channel. I don't want that to happen. I like people to appreciate what we do here, and I want people to like me, right? I'm human, and I want them to like the content and subscribe to the channel, but I understand it. If this doesn't fit their needs anymore, they're going to bail, and that's all right. I understand, these things happen, ups and downs, ebbs and flows, but we're just going to keep moving on. As I said, I feel like I have a duty to act with three things. I got to be authentic. If I'm not authentic, if I'm sort of trying to craft a narrative for something else, if I'm trying to be too much of something else, that's not authentic. The show's going to be terrible. Nobody's going to watch it because I'll be faking and forcing things. I can't do that. I have to stay authentic. I have to have integrity about what I talk about, what I'm reporting on. If I'm trying to skew things or, make a square peg fit in a round hole, it's not acting with integrity, and I can't operate that way. And I want to be of service. I want to provide some value. As long as I'm doing those three things, we're just going to keep on trucking along, even if people at times bail out and go to a different channel. Thanks, Chairman of the board. We're still going to get there. We're going to hit that 100K, and Miss Faith is going to come right in here and meet all of you. So we're looking forward to it. Thanks for the plug, Chairman of the board. Another one, he says, if impeached, they can also bar him from running again, but I don't think it's automatic. Okay, so it would be, you file articles of impeachment, and then I think the Senate will, so the House presents the evidence, the Senate hears the trial, and then there must be a sentence, right? And so maybe as part of the articles of impeachment, they say you cannot run again. And Andrew McKenzie is also bringing that up. Think Congress can put through an additional act after impeachment to prohibit him from running from office again. Okay, so awesome. We got some answers coming in. That sounds plausible to me. We have another one. Biden and Harris called for unity, but I don't know how today's message speaks or calls for unity. The one I saw from Kamala, it was very divisive. I didn't watch Joe Biden's, but I'm sure it's the same person writing both of their teleprompters. We have Mark Savoya, who says, who's having a grand old time. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate the support. And the super chat, another one from Nos Grajab, says Trump's biggest weakness is that he doesn't know how to use power. He should run for governor, learn to use power, and demonstrate that ability before we trust him with the presidency again. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. Trump is kind of a political novice across the board. We saw that in the early part of his administration. And then I think he was using, business tactics and trying to negotiate his way into something or other, and just kind of didn't understand how the political mechanisms of power worked. And there's a lot of benefit to that, a lot of benefit to being a political outsider and just going and getting things done, right? Think about Operation Warp Speed. Would any other president have gotten that done? He was going against everybody in the country, saying that you can't get it done. It takes 18 months at the earliest. It takes 4 years if you do it right, and so on. And so he just kind of said, I don't care. I don't care about any of that stuff. We're going to do it anyways. Get it done. And they got it done. They got it done in like 9 months. Insane. right? So you get that benefit of having somebody who comes into office and tells people to get it done regardless of what the bureaucratic, nonsensical response normally looks like. But you also have some downsides, because then he doesn't know how to finagle the different representatives and probably campaign, the way that he should have, or respond to certain political issues in a way that is more in alignment with how people fall politically. So there were some mistakes that were certainly made, and you make some good points. Thanks. Good job. We have another one from LD 2020. Cleansing is a scary word. If it doesn't remind people of Nazi Germany rhetoric, then we have a nationwide problem and need a national history program in schools. No justification for the phrase. I would agree with that. I think it's very inappropriate, highly concerning. That person was a journalist, if I'm not mistaken. They know what they're doing. They know what the intention is. I think they're sort of raising a flag up to sort of, tell other people, not that they're going to go start, wiping out Trump supporters, in concentration camps or anything to that effect. But it's the underlying idea, that this is sort of an infestation of a bad political ideology, which is anti-American, right? It's our First Amendment is about freedom of speech and about being able to voice your political opinion. So to have somebody coming out and saying we have to be cleansed now, disgusting. We have RCF Gum says we need to start working with our city, county, and state lawmakers to form Second Amendment sanctuaries. Second Amendment will be under attack. I would concur with that. Although I think, gun sales are through the roof. I don't know how many people are still interested in Second Amendment reform because of a lot of the unrest that we see around the country. People were really sort of stocking up on guns and ammo. It's still hard to find ammo out there. Aaron Miles says, from Riley Coffee, I'll follow that lead. From Riley Coffee. I've never heard of Riley Coffee. All right, Aaron. Thanks for that. We have Cheryl Myers who says, does Facebook, Twitter have a patent protections on their platform format, or could another deep pocket entity set up a competing social platform? So I'm sure they do have patents and certain protections and trademarks and things like that. I don't know the extent of it, but yeah, I mean, anybody can set up a competing platform. There are already many of them. There's Rumble for video. There's Parler. That's a sort of a Twitter clone. There are, Gab, which is more of a distributed network. You can go over to, there's Reddit clones. There's all sorts of different clones out there. It's just a matter of getting, I think, enough user base there. And you don't want it to sort of be an echo chamber. I think that's the problem that a lot of people have with Parler. I never get on it. I think I have an account on there and never use it. But, it's one of those things where if you're on it and the people who you want to follow are not, and they're not using it, well, then you're not going to use it. So it's kind of the chicken or the egg thing. Everybody's on Twitter, so I'm on Twitter, right? And that's just kind of the nature of the beast. Now, if they ban Trump and Trump goes to a different platform and some of his critics go to a different platform and some of his followers go to a different platform, I mean, that would probably be the quickest way to jumpstart a new platform in this age. We have another one from Pinky2. Maybe imprison Joe and Kamala for voter fraud. It's Rhyme Itzley. It's Rhyme Itzley. So, all right. Well, thanks for that, Pinky2. Maybe that'll happen. I doubt it, but maybe it will. We have LD 2020. He says, I put the audio in the chat yesterday or the day before for the Renzi, Italy, Obama thing. It's related to Nations in Action. Okay. All right. So another one from True. Okay. So I'll take a listen to it. LD 2020. Another one from True Skeptic. Sadly, it's not over. I don't care for Cruz, but I can't disagree with his speech. It's too bad nobody listened. He literally gave options to bring us together, and R's and D's pooed on him for their own gain. Yeah, I think Ted Cruz was making a good attempt to try to reconcile both sides. I don't think that it was going to go anywhere, candidly, but it was a good attempt. It was sort of an attempt to meet in the middle. What he was talking about is creating a commission. I think in 1876, when during that presidential election, there was some dispute over the electoral votes, and they created a commission. And they had, I think, 5 senators, 5 representatives, and 5 Supreme Court judges, and they all decided the election that way. And he was kind of hinting that maybe we could do that again, but the riots took place and nobody talked about it. Aaron J. says, if they find evidence now that is confirmed that Biden and Harris themselves were involved in the election fraud, what happens? Nothing. They still take the White House. They just stroll right on in there because it's done. Joe Biden has been elected. As soon as Pence read that into the Journal, that's the end of the game. So even if it comes out that Joe Biden himself was stamping ballots with Joe Biden on it, hundreds of thousands of them, doesn't matter. The only recourse at this point in time, according to our rules, you may not like it, but that's the rule. impeachment, resignation, or amend the Constitution to do something else. Another one from Zara. In reformed voting in 2005, voter rolls cleaned and voter ID required, spearheaded by a great Secretary of State. Apply pressure now to make it happen in every state. It's definitely doable. So it sounds like Indiana did reform voting in 2005. And I totally agree with that, Zara. I mean, this is where this stuff starts. Okay, if you have a problem in Georgia, gotta fix Georgia. You got a problem in Arizona, gotta fix Arizona. And then you just start, winning little mini victories around the country, and then you aggregate them all together. This is what the Democrats did, by the way. We talked about all of this election litigation before the election took place. They were filing lawsuits against secretaries of state around the country. Jocelyn Benson in Michigan, had Kathy Boockvar in Pennsylvania. They sued Brad Raffensperger in Georgia. They won all of them, right? Because they filed the lawsuits, they modified the rules to fit their electoral projections, they won. Republicans can do that too. They just got to get it together. Hidden Prophet says excellence is not a gift, but a skill that takes practice. We do not act rightly because we are excellent. In fact, we achieve excellence by acting rightly. Keep up the great work. Let's read that one more time. That's some profound stuff right there. Excellence is not a gift, but a skill that takes practice. We do not act rightly because we are excellent. In fact, we achieve excellence by acting rightly. Let that just sit there for a minute. All right, another one from Helen Alera says, thank you for your analytical perspectives. I pray that what you are doing will continue so I can vent my frustrations in a civil way. We're going to keep on going, Helen. Thanks for that. I hope to continue for the foreseeable future, for many, many years, having a good time, really enjoying these conversations, and I appreciate your support. So I will still continue to be here, as I hope you are also. Nano Bingo says, what we witnessed was a real coup. It was not a coup by Trump. It was a coup by Clinton, the CIA, the FBI, and Justice with help from the Capitol Police. The resolution was not an accident. Interesting perspective. Thanks, Nano. We have Mark Savoya, who says, #1 fan with a nice super chat. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that. We have a True Skeptic says, I have a friend prosecutor, so naturally I swing that way, huh? But thank you for giving me some different perspective about criminal defense. Could you talk more about your side? Makes me think outside the box. So I certainly will. I think after a lot of this election stuff sort of goes by the wayside, we are going to get back into it. We're going to still cover politics, of course. I think politics is kind of where all of this stuff starts. So politics are going to be on the agenda. But, the show was sort of born out of other areas of law, in particular the justice system, police misconduct, judicial misconduct, political misconduct, prosecutorial misconduct. And, not all prosecutors are bad. I'm sure your friend is a very, very nice person. I'm just kidding. I actually like a lot of prosecutors. We have Blaise Uriarty, who says, if you need ammo, I got you. So I'm pretty good right now. I got my fix in. I'm ready to rock and roll, but it is hard to find evidence if you are someone else. We have this from Robin Tucker, says, keep it up, with a nice super chat. Thanks there, Robin. And we are wrapping up. We got a couple more coming in, and then we'll get out of here for the night. We've got Patricia Nab says, can you have an insurrection when no one is armed? Yeah, it's a good question. We did spend some time yesterday, if you missed that program, talking about insurrection, sedition, treason, and a coup. What are those legal definitions? And I didn't see anything in there about an armed weapon, but there was some language about violence, right? And so you could make the argument that what you saw yesterday was pretty dang violent. Cops are injured. I think 60 cops are in the hospital, and windows are broken, and so on. So when we were analyzing those, I think technically it does fit the insurrection definition by definition. So thanks, Patricia. We had another one from, all right, our last one of the day, and then we're going to wrap it on up here, folks. We have Barbara Mazotas, who says, Boston Massacre 1770, people rushed State House to be heard. Took 20 years till George Washington, GW. Looks like we're in for a long haul for change. And that is, I think, exactly right. This is not something that is just going to be with the flip of a switch solved. This takes work, right? And the Republicans and the Freedom Caucus or whatever ends up bubbling up. Yeah, there's some work to be done. Whatever is reconstituted after the demise of the Republican Party, which I'm hopeful is expedited, is something, better and more representative and more in alignment with what actual Americans want, not this $2.4 trillion omnibus spending bill, not $600 instead of the $2,000. Caring about the American people and realigning an entire political party takes time. It takes work. And I think, as Zara, PhD, mentioned, it starts locally. I've been an advocate of that for some time, that fix the problems in your state so that those problems don't happen again, so that the next time we have an election, we don't have to file all these lawsuits and have all these issues. Right? We all want free elections. If you don't, then you don't have to do anything. But if you want to see some change in this country, got to do something about it. I would hope, anyways. But that's it. That's it for the super chats, my friend. Thank you so much for those. There were a lot of them today. I know there's a lot of activity going on. A lot of people are, very anxious and very disturbed. It felt yesterday like many of us got punched in the gut a little bit, right? Seeing that happen on the Capitol. And I don't think it's just one side of the political aisle. It's kind of everybody in the country. And so I'm hopeful that everybody out there is taking a little bit of time to unplug from the news a little bit and remember what's important in the world. Friends, family, your career, your life, your dog, whatever it is. There are other things more important. The country is going to be just fine. We're going to move on. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, all right, they'll be in there for a little bit. And we'll keep continuing to play the political game. And, it can kind of be fun to be on the opposition side a little bit, right? Rather than having to get up every day and defend somebody, you get up on the opposition and make sure that we hold them accountable, which is exactly what we're going to do here on Watching the Watchers. And that's why we want you to be a part of the program, which is a good reason for you to subscribe if you have not already done so. We go live every day of the week, and we want you to be a part of that because we talk about these issues, and we will continue to do so. A couple other things. We would love a share. As I mentioned earlier, there is this little political bubble that YouTube keeps us in. So a share would be awesome on Facebook, or posting this on your social media, or just inviting a friend over to the program. Just say, come check it out. We have a live chat at the end of the show, and it's a lot of fun. As I mentioned at the start, the slides will be in the Discord server. So Miss Faith is right back there. She's going to clip them and throw them over in Discord, which are available for your downloading and your leisure. There is also a copy of my book called Beginning to Winning. Where is a copy? Do I have a copy? I don't even know what I did with it. All right, well, I have a book. I wrote a book. It's on Amazon, and there's a free copy if you want it in the Discord server. So go on over there and check that out as well. And then lastly, but not leastly, I am a lawyer at the R&R Law Group. We have a criminal defense law firm here. We help people who have been charged with crimes. There are a lot of people who are sort of recovering from some of the holiday festivities. They need some help navigating through the criminal justice system. Our mission is to help people find safety, clarity, and hope in their cases and, of course, in their futures. We're very good at what we do. If we have a free case evaluation, people can come on in. We have a lot of other sort of legal videos on this channel. I wrote a book that they can get for free. I mean, we try to really help people. And as a result, if you happen to know anybody who needs that help, we would love and be honored if you sent a referral our way. We'll take very good care of them. We'll make sure they're dealt with appropriately and that their case is handled with vigor, okay? With some vigor, let's say. We do a good job, and we'd be honored for your referrals. So that's it, my friends. That's all that I've got. I will see you back here tomorrow. Same time, same place, 5 p.m. Arizona time, which is Mountain, 4 p.m. in California on the West Coast, 6 p.m. Central in Texas time, and then 7 p.m. on the East Coast. I want to wish everybody a very lovely rest of your evening. Sleep well. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.